Myrcilla Baratheon, bride of a northern savage. Underscore 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 underscore. Chapter 01. Myrcilla Baratheon. Myrcilla Baratheon, a beautiful blonde girl, shivered from the cold once she and her younger brother Tommen stepped out of the wheelhouse, following her mother, Queen Cersei Lannister. Indeed, Myrcilla was a princess of the Seven Kingdoms, and daughter of the king, Robert Baratheon, first of his name, who was just exchanging greetings with the Stark family. Myrcilla shivered again. The fur coats and layers given to her weren't good enough to protect the skinny girl from the cold wind of the north. She immediately disliked this place, Winterfell, because of it. It was nothing like in King's Landing, where it was warm, or even hot. Where the sun gave warmth and light at a high intensity. Here the sunlight seemed to be more dimmer. Yet, Myrcilla had to give credit that apart from the streets of King's Landing, it smelled fresh air, compared to the stink of piss and alcohol in the capital. Not to mention that for the first time in her life, Myrcilla saw snow. It was summer snow only, but snow still. Smiling at Tommen, Myrcilla observed the Stark family. She felt uneasy and nervous. Very nervous, actually, and terrified. From what she learned, the Northerners were far different from the people of the South. Almost everyone living in the South, especially her mother, called the Northmen savages for these differences. 1. They did not have any knights. When Tommen and Myrcilla asked why the North did not have any knights, the answer was that the Northerners are too savage to be considered noble to be knighted. Another major reason was that they did not believe in the Seven, but in the old gods, the gods of the weirwood trees. There was a godswood in the Red Keep, but it was always treated as a garden where you can play, rather than a place of the gods. Myrcilla heard that the Northerners pray to the weirwood trees, which were at the same time beautiful, but also spooky with those carved faces on them. Septa Eglantine told her that the Northerners are not true men, that they are like the wildlings beyond the wall, heretics and defilers, believing in false gods who aren't gods at all, but are actually demons, evil spirits. Myrcilla recalled that when the Andals came to Westeros, they began exterminating the children of the forest, ancient creatures dwelling in the woods. The North was the only kingdom where the faith of the Seven did not reach. Eglantine told her stories that many Northerners commit horrifying acts, for example, the Mormonts mating with bears, and the Starks transforming into direwolves, which was a practice of dark sorcery known as skin changing. Mother also added something as an expression of her low views on the Northmen, though Myrcilla this time believed it hardly. She loved her mother, but the girl had to admit, Cersei had low views on everyone who wasn't a Lannister, especially the common folk. A lion does not concern himself with the opinion of the sheep, she would say. Her mother was a Lannister, whose sigil was a golden lion. She also said that whoever was not a member of her family, was their enemy. Myrcilla didn't like these words. First of all, there were people whom she didn't want to have as enemies, she liked them. One such person was Sir Barristan Selmy, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. He was an old knight, but apart from the other knights of the Kingsguard, whom Myrcilla feared, especially Sir Meryn Trant with his strange looks at her, as if he wanted to do something to her, he was kind and gentle. A true knight, like in the songs. To Myrcilla and Tommen he was like a kind grandfather figure. Whenever he would guard them during the night, he would tell them bedtime stories when they were little. Way different than her maternal grandfather Tywin, who barely smiled, even at her and Tommen. Maybe he did love them, but he did not show it. Also, it sounded hypocritical. She didn't know who made up that phrase, but it made her mother a hypocrite. Uncle Tyrion, who was small in height, and ugly, but kind and gently, just like Uncle Jaime and Sir Barristan. Yet, mother despised him. No, hated him as if he was an enemy of hers. Now, Cersei told her children the same thing about the Starks. Standing at the courtyard, Myrcilla saw 10 people standing, waiting for the other members of the royal family. The tallest man was obviously Lord Eddard Stark, with brown hair and beard. Next to him was a tall woman with auburn hair, possibly his wife. The other two was a boy with auburn hair in his late teens, and a tall girl of his age with brown hair held in a braid. Her belly was swollen, obviously pregnant. Myrcilla assumed that she was Sansa Stark, Joffrey's possible fiancée, and the eldest daughter of Lord Eddard, but then why was she pregnant? Robb and Sansa, her father asked, confused at the swollen stomach, causing Eddard and his wife to smile. No, no, your grace, the Lady of Winterfell spoke. This is Robb's wife, Lady Aelys Karstark. Ah, my congratulations then, boy, Robert then answered. Next to Robb and Aelys stood a beautiful girl with auburn hair. She looked just like Lady Stark, but younger. With her stood a boy. Well, well. You are a beauty, just like your mother. Robert complimented. The girl, who was definitely Sansa, blushed, smiling. The teenage boy with slightly long brown hair, firmly nodded in agreement. And who is that? Another Stark. Robert chuckled at the boy's stern look. Lord Domeric Bolton, your grace. The boy firmly answered. Myrcella froze in fear. She heard about the Northern House Bolton and their habit of flaying people. As if to confirm that, Domeric wore the sigil of his house, a red, flayed man, on his chest. Next to the two stood a teenage girl with brown hair, just like Eddard Stark's. And who are you? Robert asked, smiling. Arya Stark, the girl answered with pride. A boy standing next to her introduced himself as Ned Umber, stammering, obviously nervous of seeing the king for the first time. The last two were boys, a boy with medium-length brown hair around Myrcella's age, and a little boy younger than Tommen with auburn hair. Myrcella soon learned that these were Lord Eddard's youngest sons, Bran Stark and Rickon Stark respectively. Take me to the crypts, Ned. I need to pay my respects. Robert spoke to his old friend, only for her mother to interfere. My love, we've been riding for a month. Ned, an annoyed Robert called for him. Eddard apologized to the Queen, only for Cersei to immediately ignore him as she was approached by Jaime. Eddard Stark. They went down to the crypt together, Ned and this king he scarcely recognized. The winding stone steps were narrow. Ned went first with the lantern. I was starting to think we would never reach Winterfell, Robert complained as they descended. In the south, the way they talk about my 7 kingdoms, a man forgets that your part is as big as the other 6 combined. I trust you enjoyed the journey, your grace. Robert snorted. Bogs and forests and fields, and scarcely a decent inn north of the neck. I've never seen such a vast emptiness. Where are all your people? Likely they were too shy to come out, Ned jested. He could feel the chill coming up the stairs, a cold breath from deep within the earth. Kings are a rare sight in the north. Robert snorted. More likely they were hiding under the snow. Snow, Ned. The king put one hand on the wall to steady himself as they descended. Late summer snows are common enough, Ned said. I hope they did not trouble you. They are usually mild. The others take your mild snows, Robert swore. What will this place be like in winter? I shudder to think. The winters are hard, Ned admitted. But the Starks will endure. We always have. You need to come south, Robert told him. You need a taste of summer before it flees. In Highgarden there are fields of golden roses that stretch away as far as the eye can see. The fruits are so ripe they explode in your mouth, melons, peaches, fire plums, you've never tasted such sweetness. You'll see, I brought you some. Even at Storm's End, with that good wind off the bay, the days are so hot you can barely move. And you ought to see the towns, Ned. Flowers everywhere, the markets bursting with food, the summer wine so cheap and so good that you can get drunk just breathing the air. Everyone is fat and drunk and rich. He laughed and slapped his own ample stomach a thump. And the girls, Ned, he exclaimed, his eyes sparkling. I swear, women lose all modesty in the heat. They swim naked in the river, right beneath the castle. Even in the streets, it's too damn hot for wool or fur, so they go around in these short gowns, silk if they have the silver and cotton if not, but it's all the same when they start sweating and the cloth sticks to their skin, they might as well be naked. The king laughed happily. Robert Baratheon had always been a man of huge appetites, a man who knew how to take his pleasures. That was not a charge anyone could lay at the door of Eddard Stark. Yet Ned could not help but notice that those pleasures were taking a toll on the king. Robert was breathing heavily by the time they reached the bottom of the stairs, his face red in the lantern light as they stepped out into the darkness of the crypt. After visiting the tomb of Eddard's late sister Lyanna Stark, King Robert began discussing the reasons he came. One of them was the joining of their houses. "We were meant to rule together." Robert spoke. "If Lyanna had lived, we should have been brothers, bound by blood as well as affection. Well, it is not too late. I have a son. You have a daughter. My Joff and your Sansa shall join our houses, as Lyanna and I might once have done." Eddard bit his lip once his old friend told him of this offer. Of course, he couldn't refuse to the king, but on the other hand, he could not refuse Roose Bolton. For centuries, an ancient rival existed between the Starks and the Boltons. With Domeric, the only son of Roose, fostering in Winterfell, both Eddard and Roose agreed to a betrothal between Domeric and Sansa as a chance of improving the relationship between the two families. "You offer honors me," Robert Eddard hoped that by addressing him by his name would somehow help. "But Sansa is already betrothed to Domeric, Roose Bolton's son and heir." "Ah, fuck with them Boltons." Robert laughed as if it wasn't a problem. "Call off the betrothal. Your daughter needs to see the South. As much as I would love to, I could not." Eddard spoke, trying to encourage the king to see reason. "This betrothal is my only chance to improve my relations with the Boltons. They are going to marry very soon. I have the North to rule, Robert. Robb is not ready to become the next warden." When Eddard said that, Robert's smile immediately vanished. The king was obviously displeased with the news. "All right, let the Boltons have her. At least you have another daughter, that Arya of yours. She is a wild one, I see, just like my Lyanna. She and Joffrey will make a great pair." "She is betrothed too," Eddard answered. "To Ned Umber." "That boy, the runt of the giants?" Robert asked, obviously surprised. Still, he wasn't happy with this kind of perspective. "Call this one off," Robert stubbornly said. "I gave my vows, Robert," Ned argued. "You know I could not do this. I want our houses united, and I will have them united." Robert remained stubborn. Eddard mentally cursed him. Sometimes Robert could be so irritating. "How about an alternative?" Eddard asked when an idea suddenly came up. "What kind of an alternative?" "I have sons too, not only daughters," Eddard explained. "My son, and your daughter, Princess Myrcella, will join our houses. From what I saw, your boy already has a wife." Robert almost snarled. "You're forgetting, Robert, I have sons, not a son. What I propose is to betroth my second son Bran Stark and your only daughter Myrcella Baratheon," Eddard answered. He stood silent as he looked at Robert, waiting for an answer. Finally, the Fat King sighed before reluctantly making a decision. "All right, Eddard. You'll have it. Myrcella will marry Bran." Robert snorted. "Come on, I've spent a month traveling and I'm in need of a drink and good, old boar." Smiling at his friend, Eddard followed the king as the two made for the staircase leading them up to the surface. Chapter 02. Bran Stark. Bran Stark walked alongside Princess Myrcella Baratheon, leading her up the dais, just like his father led the queen. Just like her mother, who completely ignored Eddard, Myrcella tried to ignore him, but while the queen did it because of her pride, which according to Bran's mother, was increasing drastically, Bran noticed that Myrcella was very anxious and shy of him, giving him shy looks from time to time. Bran blushed in response. He never really spent any time with a girl, someone outside his family. Leaving Myrcella along with her siblings and two uncles, Sir Jaime Lannister and Tyrion Lannister, commonly known as the Imp due to his size of a dwarf, Bran took his seat at the high table among with his siblings. He saw Robb and his wife Aelys sitting together, with Robb looking at her swollen stomach and grinning like a fool. Bran didn't mind though. Robb and Aelys were expecting their first child, so it was obvious that he would be excited. The only thing that ruined this scene were the inappropriate jokes of Theon Greyjoy. Gods, sometimes the ward really irritated Bran with the cocky attitude of his. I guess, it's just what these Ironborn are, Bran thought. Despite being among his siblings, he felt lonely. He really wanted his direwolf Summer to be with him at the feast. As he started eating, Bran looked to the left, where his younger brother, Rickon, sat. Despite having the tully hair, there was a little wolf inside that boy. A year after finding the direwolf and her pups, Rukan had already proven himself to be a wild child, especially with his direwolf Shaggydog, or Shaggy. Yet, Bran wasn't worried about his behavior, since he believed that Rukan was now old enough to understand what was going on and that he needed to behave. To the right of Bran was Arya, wearing a northern dress, sitting beside her fiancé Ned Umber. Bran looked at the Umber boy with sympathy. Not only he was shy and nervous of the royal party, but also anxious of being with his betrothed. He could tell that Ned was infatuated with his sister, and Bran didn't mind. Since arriving to Winterfell, Ned Umber seemed to be a fine boy, and the two quickly became friends. Arya, on the other hand, was not happy with the perspectives. Bran knew that she didn't want to marry and become a lady. On the opposite sat Sansa Stark, with her betrothed Domeric Bolton, and her childhood friend Jane Poole at her sides. Seeing the look on her face, Bran looked at what she was looking at and immediately understood. Sansa was dreamily looking at the Crown Prince Joffrey Baratheon. The boy thought of reminding his older sister that she had a bridegroom now and she must marry him for the Sake of the North. Looking at Joffrey, Bran suddenly noticed that Myrcella was looking at him. Seeing that he noticed, the princess immediately lowered her head, avoiding Bran's gaze. Bran rolled his eyes. She was just like Sansa, naive. Just as he was about to talk to someone, Rukan grabbed a spoon and threw food at Sansa's right cheek. "Rukan," she yelled, while the youngest of the Stark children giggled, with Arya joining the laugh. "It's not funny." Sansa yelled again while Domeric wiped the food off her face. Rukan's smile faded when Robb grabbed him and pulled him off the table. "We'll take him to bed," Alis told the others. "And I think me and Robb shall retire for today." "Of course." Both Domeric and Bran answered simultaneously. Despite Rukan being long gone, Sansa was still complaining. Seeing this, Domeric finally stood up and left, returning later with a harp. As if forgetting of her baby brother's antics, Sansa immediately smiled at the sight of the musical instrument. Bran was eager to listen too. Despite the stern looks Domeric gave since he began fostering in Winterfell, Bran soon discovered that he was a serious, no-nonsense, but a kind, gentle and decent person. During archery practice, when his parents weren't watching and Bran missed another shot, Domeric, apart from Jon and Robb, was the only one who did not laugh at his embarrassing shot, and gave him a pep talk. He stated that maybe he won't be a good archer, but he maybe would become a great swordsman, and maybe even a legendary knight like Sir Barristan Selmy or Sir Arthur Dane. Then, to everyone's surprise, Domeric proved himself to be a good singer and player. He brought his own harp to Winterfell when leaving Dreadfort, and during feasts or peaceful evenings, he would entertain the Stark children playing. Sansa was immediately infatuated with his voice. Even Arya began to love Domeric's performance. The concert that Domeric began, however, did not last long. While the majority within the Great Hall silenced, including the musicians, and even the Lannisters were impressed by the Boltons' talent. The only people who rudely disrupted him were Theon, Joffrey and the king himself. Bran had to expect that from Theon. Shortly after arriving to their home keep, Domeric immediately became close with Jon Snow. The main reason for that was that according to Domeric, he had a bastard brother too. Bran tried to recall his name, guessing it was Ramsay. But he was raised somewhere else and Domeric never knew him. This saddened Domeric since he always wanted a sibling, and he did not care, baseborn or not. This friendship with Jon led to the two boys sharing a common dislike to the Greyjoy boy. Theon always mocked the Bolton for his serious, no-nonsense attitude, while in return, Domeric calmly reprimanded the Squidling for his arrogant and vain personality, and lacking responsibility, with his constant visits to the Wintertown brothel as an example. As a result, Theon would find any reason to pick on Domeric, just as he did on Jon. That included Domeric's talent in playing a harp. Bran remembered a dialogue the two had. "Ah, Bolton, you're no fun." "Just like the Stark bastard," Theon remarked, grinning at him. Bran clenched his fist at the way Theon still referred Jon. "You'd rather read these old tomes rather than have a sense of pleasure in the arms of the wonderful girls I know around here." Maybe Theon continued to mockingly joke. "You've been castrated, by your own father." Poor Sansa, being married to a northern eunuch who wouldn't be able to breed her. Domeric, who was ignoring Theon, finally turned to him. Despite remaining calm, Bran knew that Domeric was deeply offended by the way Theon joked about his betrothal to Sansa. Finally Domeric told Theon that he doesn't know anything about the Bolton practices, nor anything about running his house. Domeric then added, "You know, I wonder what it is like to be a ward, but instead of learning how to run a castle and the lands, spending whoring, only to become a failure in the eyes of his ancestors, just like his father, a failed rebel. I wonder what it is to be flayed right now, since it has been outlawed for centuries." Theon said with a smirk. "Never mind squiddling, you just might experience it if you carry on like that." Domeric answered, calm as ever. For some reason, Theon felt a chill when he said that. Seeing this, a satisfied Domeric gently clapped Greyjoy's shoulder before leaving. Now, he was laughing at Domeric's performance. Joffrey joined along. But the loudest of them was Robert. He was already drunk, surrounded by numerous whores, openly cheating his wife. He immediately called the music, which was a northern classic, a horseshit, and demanded to play something he liked. He continued to laugh despite Domeric's annoyed look. Bran then noticed Myrcella having a saddened look, and it was as if she was sobbing. Myrcella Baratheon. The next day, it seemed to be more quiet in Winterfell than it was yesterday, despite the royal party still here and the keep filled with Baratheon and Lannister bannermen. Myrcella was now sitting in a chamber with Lord Stark's daughters, Sansa and Arya, and other young girls who lived at Winterfell. Among them were Jane Poole and Beth Castle, Sansa's best friends since childhood. Myrcella was shy to talk with them, considering that they were Northmen too, but they seemed to be nice and gentle girls. She would have loved talking with her younger brother Tommen, but he was in the courtyard sparring with Bran. She searched for her scepter, and saw Eglantine talking with Mordane, the scepter of Winterfell. Although she was thought that eavesdropping conversations was not polite, the teenage princess approached the two scepters, curious of what they were discussing. As she sat closer to the scepters, Myrcella heard Mordane complaining to Eglantine. Since her arrival to Winterfell, Mordane was tasked raising and teaching Lady Catelyn's daughters. While Sansa was a southern lady by behavior, Arya was a wild child. Instead of following the true faith, she was following the fake old gods just like the other Starks. It became worse for the old scepter when Osha, a real wilderling, Myrcella almost gasped when she heard that, was brought into the keep. Rickon immediately became close to the savage and she also began caring for the Stark children. Mordane told Eglantine how she tried to encourage her lady see the truth, but Catelyn trusted this wilderling. Having enough of the heat within the room due to the fire, Myrcella stood up and left for outside, feeling lonely. She didn't know where her uncles Jaime and Tyrion were, and she didn't want to be near Joffrey, so, Myrcella headed for the courtyard. As she guessed, Tommen was sparring with Bran, Lord Eddard's second son. Sir Roderick Castle stood observing the spar with wooden swords. Myrcella looked at Bran. He seemed to be quite handsome, despite being only 14 years old, just like her, with the brown hair of his. The princess then looked at her brother, who was a year younger than her. She smiled. For the past 6 years, Tommen has matured both mentally and physically. He has become a healthy and strong boy. Soon, he would outgrow her. Watching them, Myrcella almost yelped when Bran knocked Tommen down, and pointing his wooden sword straight at the prince's throat. Although the sword was wooden, Myrcella still feared for her brother. "Do you yield?" Bran asked, looking down at Tommen. "I yield." Tommen reluctantly answered. Putting the sword away, Bran, to Myrcella's surprise, offered Tommen his hand, which her brother accepted, allowing the Stark boy to pull him up from the ground. The two boys smiled when Jory Castle came. He was approaching Bran when he noticed that Princess Myrcella was here too. "Oh, Princess Myrcella," Jory bowed to her in respect. "How fortunate is that I found both you and Lord Bran together. Your father, the king, has summoned you both." Both Myrcella and Bran looked at each other, sharing a look with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. Still, the two followed the Stark bannermen, leaving the courtyard. As they walked, Bran and Myrcella were avoiding to look at each other, while trying to guess why they were summoned. The three reached Lord Eddard Solar, with Myrcella's uncle, Jaime Lannister, guarding the entrance. Myrcella felt fear striking her as she heard her mother's raging voice. From what she understood, her parents were fighting, as usual. Just as her uncle opened the door, Sir Meryn Trant caught up with them. Seeing that Jory Castle brought both of the children to the king, he gave the Northman a threatening look. Jory seemed to ignore it. Entering the solar, Myrcella found both of her parents, the king and queen, standing, while Lord Eddard sat behind his desk. When the door closed behind them, Lord Eddard took a deep breath. Though, it was her father who began. "So, you're both here. Good," Robert muttered. "Since Lord Stark's older children cannot marry any of my children, I'm thereby announcing the betrothal between Ned's son Brandon Stark and my pretty girl, Myrcella." That was unexpected, well, except for her father and Lord Eddard. Myrcella saw that Bran was shocked too. The princess herself was distraught. She didn't want to marry a northerner. They followed the old gods, and it was viciously cold in the north. By marrying him meant she would live here, in the frost, away from the warm south, away from her family. She was also scared of what would Bran, a savage, as her mother called the Northman, would do to her. "How dare you suggest to selling of my daughter to those savage beasts," she heard her mother raging. "She is a princess, not a wolf's plaything." "Yes, she is, and as a princess she will marry a lord," Robert answered. "How come the Stark's oldest daughter cannot marry my Joffrey?" Cersei asked, pointing at Lord Eddard. "She is to marry the heir of Dreadfort." Lord Eddard answered in a mild tone, though Myrcella could believe that he was offended by her mother's behavior. "I will not allow this." Cersei continued to protest. "I will not allow to have my daughter to be sold to those filthy barbarians who follow the stupid gods of the woods like a whore. I am the queen. And I am your king, woman. I advise you to remember that." Robert snarled in response. Myrcella knew that her father was on the verge of hitting his wife in the face. She could not bear it. It was too much for her, the betrothal, her mother's reaction, and her father's abuse of her. Tearing up, she quickly opened the door and dashed out. Myrcella did not know where to go, all she wanted was to be away from everyone. Absent-mindedly, she reached the Godswood of Winterfell, collapsing onto the base of the weirwood tree, breaking down into tears. The ages of the characters. Robb Stark, 20. Jon Snow, Aelys Karstark, 19. Joffrey Baratheon, 18. Sansa Stark, 17. Arya Stark, 15. Bran Stark, Myrcella Baratheon, 14. Tommen Baratheon, Ned Umber, 13. Rickon Stark, 10. Underscore 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 underscore. Chapter 03. Tommen Baratheon. Despite what the Southerners thought of the Northerners, Tommen actually liked it here in Winterfell. Yes, it was cold, and the Northmen believed in gods of the first men, while Tommen, who was an Andal, was baptized by the worshippers of the Seven, but it was clean, compared to the dirty and crowded King's Landing. Tommen found himself smelling fresh air for the first time in his life. Real, clean fresh air. Although the personnel working at the Red Keep tried their best to uphold the sanitation for the royal family, the stink of urine and alcohol from the city streets still reached the halls and corridors of the Red Keep, including the throne room. The royal party has arrived only yesterday, and Tommen already began making friends in Winterfell. He immediately befriended Bran Stark. He was a year older than him, just like his sweet sister Myrcella, but that wasn't a large age gap for the two boys. While Bran had an interest in knighthood and direwolves, and Tommen was more of a cat person, the two boys shared a common interest in legends and the history of Westeros. Tommen immediately saw Bran as a kind and friendly lad. Tommen never had friends before, but for the first time, Tommen had an actual friend, a real one. As they were sparring, Tommen was barely blocking Bran's attacks while unsuccessfully trying to counterattack. Tommen had to admit that despite not being trained by Kingsguard knights, who are considered to be the best, Bran was a talented fighter. He also proved himself to be an honorable one during the spar, and when he offered a hand to pull him up from the ground once Tommen yielded to Bran. As he gave the wooden sword to Roderick Castle, Tommen looked at Bran and Myrcella leaving with Jory, curious at what did father, if you could call him that, wanted from them. Tommen began to recently realize that the king didn't really care about his 3 children. Mother, on the other hand, did care about Joffrey, and only him. Yes, Tommen agreed that his older brother, whom he wished was not, was the crown prince and heir to the Iron Throne, and thus, needed to be prepared to take the crown, but that did not mean that Joffrey had to be spoilt and pampered. Since the age of 5, Tommen knew that Joffrey was a horrible person. He remembered that day very well when Joffrey, right in front of him, skinned his pet cat. Tommen was horrified, wailing hysterically from the scene. Robert, of course, back then, hit Joffrey hard, but that was all. Cersei, on the other hand, did not do anything in Tommen's defense. Now, she just constantly defended Joffrey's actions, no matter how horrible they were, even if he abused his siblings. Tommen looked disgusted as Cersei pampered her firstborn, blind to Joffrey's flaws. With his sparring lessons over for now, and having nothing else to do, Tommen decided to walk around and explore Winterfell. It was a massive keep, not as huge the Red Keep itself, but Tommen gave credit for its size and defenses. Strolling around, the young prince decided to visit the local Godswood. He did not have the chance to see it yesterday, as he and the rest of the royal family were busy, but he wanted to see it since he heard of it. Crossing the gateway to it, Tommen at first thought that he was leaving the keep and entering the wilderness, but soon found a glimpse of the wall surrounding the area. Tommen had to admit, the Godswood in Winterfell was far, far different than the Godswood at home. A true Godswood, he could say. While the Godswood in King's Landing was more of a garden, the Godswood here was like a forest filled with mysteries, and maybe, even with the infamous children of the forest. As he walked, examining the unique tundra tress of the north, Tommen suddenly heard a cry and came towards it. He was shocked and heartbroken to see that it was dear sister Myrcella crying at the roots of the weirwood tree. The last time he saw her was being summoned by their father. Tommen feared that the king has somehow offended Myrcella, as he gently approached her. "Cella, what's wrong?" Tommen asked gently, causing the weeping princess to startle. She looked at her brother, eyes red and wet from tears. Tommen felt his heart breaking once again at the sight as Myrcella was breaking down again. Tommen immediately pulled her into a hug. "What happened?" Tommen asked her again. After some minutes of crying, Myrcella looked up at her brother. Her lips were trembling. "It's father. He called us both, Bran and me. Lord Stark and mother were there too. Father said that since Robb and Sansa cannot marry any of his children, I will marry Bran." Myrcella collapsed and began sobbing once again. Tommen wrapped his arms around Myrcella tighter, stroking her blonde hair. "Shush," he cooed. "Don't cry, Cella. It's okay." "It is not okay," the princess almost yelled. "I'm being married to a Stark, a northerner. Who is not even a lord's first son. I will have to stay here in the cold, away from you, mother, Uncle Jaime, Uncle Tyrion. I want to stay home with you. I'm scared of what will happen to me." "I know, Cella, I know." Tommen answered, he himself on the brink of tears, with the mere thought of partying with his sister with the possibility of not seeing her ever again terrified him. At least, she was away from Joffrey's antics, but still, away from her family. Tommen wondered how could father do something like this, only to remember that he was the king, and kings whatever they fucking wanted, at least that's what Robert said. "I really don't think that Bran Stark is a terrible person," Cella Tommen told his sister with honesty. "I know you do not know him well, and I have only met him yesterday, but he doesn't seem bad, even if he believes in the old gods and is a Northman." Myrcella glared at her brother. She knew that he was trying to comfort her, but in her opinion, Tommen wasn't helping at all. "I don't care, Tommen. Even if he's like Maegor the Cruel or like Uncle Renly, I don't want to part with my family. I don't want father selling me off as if I'm nothing, even if I'm nothing to him anyway." "No one is selling you off like an object," Cella Tommen tried to reason with her. "You aren't nothing. Tell that to father. For years, since we were born, he didn't give a thing about us, and never will. You know that, Tommen, and if not, well, then you are stupid, just like him." Myrcella suddenly yelled. She never yelled at her beloved little brother, and never wanted to, but right now she was just being emotional, filled with so much despair and anger, and she needed to release it somehow. It was obvious from her facial expressions, and right now, she was displaying regret as Tommen, startled by her outburst, let her go. He thought it was better to leave her for now. I'll get Uncle Jamie to bring you back to the guest chambers," he finally managed to say, turning around and leaving his sister for herself. With his back turned on her, he did not see Ursula wanting to call him and apologize, but it was too late for her as he left the Godswood. Bran Stark. Bran Stark was not proud of the betrothal either. Shortly after King Robert and Queen Cersei left, he had an argument with his father. Thankfully, only he and Lord Eddard were present as the royal couple were long gone with the Kingsguard guarding them. "Father, you can't do this," Bran complained. "I cannot marry, I want to be a knight. I am supposed to join the Kingsguard." "Son, marrying someone doesn't mean you will not be a knight," Eddard Stark responded in a mild tone. "Yes, you wouldn't join the Kingsguard, but you can still be a knight nonetheless." "But I cannot marry, particularly her, father. She is a golden Lannister bitch from the south, she's stupid and she worships the stupid gods that make people believe in idiotic ideas about the First Men and their legacy." It was about 2 years ago the Starks discovered that their children were wargs, and Bran found himself to be the most potential of mastering his abilities. Catelyn at first panicked, so did Sansa, as the two strongly believed in the Seven, with the oldest Stark daughter even refusing to practice her powers. "You watch your tongue, boy," his father interrupted, obviously angered. "The Starks may have the blood of the First Men, but you also have Andal blood from your mother. Princess Myrcella is not stupid, she's 14 name days, just as you are, and from what I've seen, she is kind and sweet. You are lucky, Bran, to get such a wonderful girl." Bran grabbed for his hair, despair filling him. He was now feeling what Sansa and Arya felt. The boy now understood what it was like for Sansa when, instead of going to the south and marrying a prince, she ended up too soon marrying the heir of a northern house, with a negative reputation, and what it was like for Arya when father decided to betroth her to an Umber. He remembered how each of his sisters reacted to their respective betrothals. Sansa was raging, claiming that she was to marry the prince and live in King's Landing, not being trapped in the cold north with an ugly Northman. She said that Arya Horseface should marry the Bolton. Bran snickered to himself when their parents reprimanded Sansa for her behavior and her treatment of Arya. His other sister, meanwhile, tried to run away multiple times. She was thinking of either heading north to the Wall, or to Braavos. But she was always caught by father and his bannermen. Son Ned spoke in a soft tone as he stood up from his desk, and approached Bran. "You will marry Myrcella. I know it is hard to accept that. I remember when your uncle Brandon perished in King's Landing along with your grandfather, your mother, who was your uncle's bride, was immediately betrothed to me. I did not know her back then, nor have never seen her before. Just like your bride, your mother is also from the south, praying to the Seven. I remember our wedding was quite a dull one. We made our vows, I replaced her maiden cloak with the cloak of our house, then the feast, and then the bedding. It was quick, we did our duty, and it was only duty, nothing more, for we did not love each other back then. But then we built our love slowly, and I thank her for giving birth to all of you, Robb, Sansa, Arya, you and Rickon. We have a wonderful marriage. What I mean is that while I and your mother did not know each other up until our wedding, you and Myrcella on the other hand have a chance to interact and know each other. I hope that by the time to marry her will come, you two will be close to each other. Do you understand what I mean?" Eddard finished with a question. "Yes, Father," Bran muttered. "Though I cannot promise anything." "Well, at least give it a try," Eddard told his son. Taking a deep breath, Bran nodded before leaving his father within the solar. Crossing the courtyard, he saw what seemed to be a glimpse of Tyrion Lannister escorting Myrcella to the guest chambers. Bran thought that he saw the princess' eyes red, possibly from crying. Deciding to leave his future wife alone, the boy headed towards the kennels of Winterfell in order to calm down. He was immediately by his direwolf Summer, who instantly leapt at him, licking the boys' faces. Hey, easy there, fella. I missed you too, buddy." Bran begged as he petted the canine, which then followed by belly rubbing. He looked up to see Nymeria, Arya's direwolf, approaching her brother. Hearing a child's giggle, Bran saw that Rickon was already here, along with Osha, playing with Shaggydog. Playing with Summer and practicing his warging abilities, Bran Stark forgot about the betrothal, as if it was a bad dream, allowing himself to relax, for now. Chapter 04. Tyrion Lannister. On this day, Tyrion was spending most of his time within the library of Winterfell. The Lannister imp was grateful of Maester Lewin in finding the books Tyrion was looking for to read. He was sitting at one of the library's desks, which was filled with numerous tomes and candles, with a goblet of fine wine from the Reach was in his grasp, when his sweet nephew Tommen Baratheon basically stormed into the library, with despair and sadness on his face. "Uncle! I need your help." Tommen immediately told him. "What troubles you?" the imp asked in concern. "It's Myrcella. She's in the Godswood, crying. It's all because of father." Tommen began explaining, but was immediately interrupted by Tyrion, jumping from his chair and with his small legs began heading towards the exit, asking the 13-year-old prince to explain on the way. From what the boy told him surprised Tyrion. Myrcella, a princess, was betrothed to Stark's second son. He immediately understood the reason of Myrcella's reaction, and he definitely knew his sister's reaction, for he knew Cersei very well. There was bad blood between the two siblings. Cersei shared their father's hatred of him due to him being a dwarf, and most importantly, that their mother, the late Lady Joanna Lannister, died in childbirth. Still, Tyrion had to give credit to Cersei that she dearly loved her children, which was one of the few, if not the only, good quality she had. However, while she loved Joffrey, Myrcella and Tommen, Tyrion knew that his sister had a possession over them. She wanted to control them, especially her eldest, Joffrey, since he was the crown prince and heir to the Iron Throne. Though Tyrion would have preferred the boy who was following him now as the next king than the brat Cersei pampered. "I was thinking of getting Uncle Jaime, but I couldn't find him anywhere," Tommen was telling him. "It's all right, Tommen. You did the right to call me for help. Go back to your guest chambers and fetch some water for your sister," Tyrion assured his nephew. He too did not know where exactly his beloved brother was, but he guessed what he was doing now. With Cersei raging, Jaime would possibly be trying to calm her down, which could possibly lead to some intense and incest. It was about 4 or 5 years ago that Tyrion discovered that his older siblings, who were twins, were in an incestuous relationship and that the 3 royal children are nothing but bastards of incest. Tyrion wasn't just shocked from this discovery, he was disgusted. He knew that incest brought terrible and deadly consequences. The madness that flowed through the bloodline of the Targaryen dynasty was a result of the constant incest the members of the House of the Dragon committed. King Aerys II Targaryen, better known as the Mad King, was a great example of it, and now, Joffrey was basically the Mad King reborn, even if he still does not have the power of a king, thank the gods, for now. Still there were Myrcella and Tommen, who have inherited the looks of Cersei and Jaime, respectively, but none of their mother's nature. Tyrion entered the ground Godswood of Winterfell and found Myrcella right where Tommen left her, at the weirwood tree, in tears. Her eyes were already red from crying. Gently stroking her beautiful blonde hair, Tyrion offered his niece to take her back to the warm guest chambers. Without a word, she nodded, and allowed her dwarf uncle to lead the way. As they crossed the courtyard, reaching towards the doorway into the keep, Tyrion saw a glimpse of Myrcella's future husband crossing the yard, heading towards the kennels, where the direwolves of the Stark children were. Tyrion heard of the direwolves and that they dwelled in the north of the wall, so, hearing that they have reached to the lands of House Stark amazed him. He already managed to see them personally in the morning, impressed by their size. He even feared of facing one alone. However, the direwolves weren't the main concern for Tyrion right now, it was the well-being of his niece. Tyrion brought the poor girl to her chambers, where Septa Eglantine was already waiting for her. Ignoring the Septa's demands of answering what was going on, Tyrion helped Myrcella to sit on her bed. Coincidentally, his dear brother finally joined them along with Tommen, who brought water. Myrcella Baratheon. When Myrcella was brought back to her temperate chambers, she was still agitated. Her dear Uncle Tyrion sat beside her, just as both Tommen and Uncle Jaime came, with her brother bringing some water, which Tyrion took from him. "Myrcella, dear, drink some water," she heard her dwarf uncle speaking to her as he offered it. The 14-year-old girl did as she was told, taking a large gulp. Uncle Jaime joined them by sitting to the other side of her bed, gently stroking her hair. Although Myrcella adored Septa Eglantine, however, she wasn't helping at all. "Can someone please explain me what is going on?" she demanded, and Uncle Tyrion finally told the Septa of the betrothal. Just like her mother, Eglantine was not pleased with these news. "Shouldn't a princess be worthy of a lord who follows the true faith?" the Septa asked in a displeased tone. Ursula felt that she was about to break down into tears once again. Everyone was worried about the god's damn betrothal, but not about her. No one was interested of her thoughts and fears about it. "I'm afraid the king has already made his decision, Septa, nor that he really cares about your opinion. Please forgive me," Tyrion replied as he continued to hold the mug of water in his left hand, while his right arm was wrapped around the girl. Ursula really wanted to scream. She had various emotions running through her mind. There was sadness, despair, fear of her unknown future, her future husband, the direwolves, the Stark family, loneliness and living as a ward of Lord Stark, away from her own family, and last but not least, hatred. She had hatred for her father, though she began to doubt that King Robert Baratheon, first of his name, was her father at all. Ursula did not want this to happen, but she had already begun losing any respect for her father. He was figuratively nothing, but a drunk fool and a pathetic excuse of a king. 7 hells, he was even a poor excuse of a lord, or a warrior. The stories of him being a strong and mighty warrior during his rebellion against House Targaryen sounded like a lie, a mere fantasy. She hated Robert for treating her like this. She hated Robert for his foolish mind and antics. She hated Robert for his immodest behavior. She hated Robert for his rotten habit of drinking and whoring right in front of all 7 kingdoms, if not the whole world, shaming and humiliating his family. She hated Robert for the way he treated her mother. He constantly abused her, humiliated her, shamed her, hit her. When it came to hitting, sometimes Ursula thought of standing up for mother. Robert Baratheon was nothing but a fat, stupid, idiotic, arrogant, disgusting and selfish pig, and his sigil should have been one, not a black stag. Oh gods, Ursula thought. How come I became the daughter of that fat animal? Ursula spent the rest of the day within her chambers, calming down. When she finally did, it was already evening as the sun was setting down. It was getting darker as time went on. Putting on one of her beautiful dresses, the princess was led by Sir Meryn Trant. Ursula would have preferred her uncle, as she felt uncomfortable from the knight in shining armor and white cloak constantly stared at her with a look that disturbed her. She remembered that old Walder Frey, whose new wife was 2 years younger than the 14-year-old princess, looked at her the same way when they were crossing the twins. Sometime later, Ursula would learn with disgust that this was the look displayed the lust of a pervert and a pedophile. Just like last night, Ursula, before entering the Great Hall, was joined by Bran Stark to walk down the hall towards the high table. Ursula did not want to do that at all. For now, she desperately wanted to avoid her betrothed as long as possible. Of course, never seeing him again would have been a great gift from the gods, but she knew that this would never happen. Trying to keep herself calm, Ursula coldly offered her hand to the second son of Lord Eddard, which he took reluctantly. Ursula assumed that Bran was not happy about their union either. Not saying a word nor sharing a look, the 2 14-year-olds walked down the hall before Bran left her with her family. The feast hadn't even begun, and he was already drunk, harassing women. Joffrey was no better too. He sat with his mother and uncles, already becoming drunk as he too was enjoying too much wine and ale, with his personal bodyguard, who was not a member of the Kingsguard, Sandor Clegane, whom everyone referred to as the Hound, towering above the Crown Prince. Tommen looked up and nodded to Ursula. She could feel the tension between them present. Ursula knew that it was because of her outburst on him, and felt guilty of yelling at him. Absent-mindedly, Ursula began eating, though she didn't have an appetite really. All she wanted to do now was to go to sleep and wake up at home in King's Landing as if all of this was a nightmare and nothing more. She looked at her mother. The Queen, who did not come to comfort her, was looking at the Stark children, particularly Bran, with an icy stare. Just then, Robert finally joined his family, holding a mug of mead. Ursula mentally groaned in frustration as the obese-drunk king barely managed to clamber up to the high table. He tapped a fork against his mug in order to get attention, but the bannermen feasting did not hear as they continued to drink, talk, and sing while the music continued to play. Groaning, Robert boldly snatched his wife's cup of Dornish wine and smashed it against the stone floor of the hall. "Listen here, everyone!" Robert roared across the whole hall. I am proud to announce the betrothal between Ned's son, young Bran Stark, and my sweet, pretty girl Myrcella. Let us celebrate this union with wine to drink and tits to stare at." Some of the Baratheon and Lannister bannermen laughed at the last sentence. Myrcella looked and saw her mother on the verge of raging out again. Thankfully, Uncle Jaime began whispering something into her ear. Joffrey, who was already drunk, approached her. Great, the least thing what she needed now was another reason for him to bully her. Well, well. It may seem my sister shall become a wolf's bitch. Joffrey chuckled, with the hound standing behind him. Sneering, her older brother imitated as if his was smelling something in the air. And I can sense that you're already wet for him. Do you sense it, hound? Sandor Clegane just stood there, remaining silent. Joffrey decided to ignore him. Myrcella could smell wine coming from him. If you need help, I can do a favor, sister. Well, you know, show you where I put my cock inside you, all that. That was just too much for Myrcella. She already got used to him hitting her, teasing her, but with making inappropriate jokes about her current situation and offering to commit incest with her, her brother has gone too far. Hearing this, Tommen immediately stood up for her. Shut up, Joffrey. Leave our sister alone. She's already not feeling well, he demanded. Myrcella whimpered when Joffrey's smile faded. She knew what would happen next. At least she's marrying someone who can truly be considered a man, apart from someone. Tommen added, obviously comparing Joffrey to Bran. "You fucking cunt." Joffrey yelled, ready to punch her brother, only for Sandor grab his hand. Joffrey looked at Clegane with rage. "Let me go, dog," he demanded, only for the hound to pull him away from his siblings. Tyrion approached, holding a goblet of wine. Myrcella saw her uncle looking at her brother with anger and disgust. "The prince is tired, he shall retire to his chambers," he told the hound, who firmly nodded before taking a protesting Joffrey away from the hall. Finishing her meal, Myrcella told her parents that she wanted to retire. Still holding an icy look, Cersei allowed her, saying with no emotion. Her mother's reaction really saddened the princess as she walked away with Uncle Jaime escorting her back to the guest chambers. She knew that mother cared about Joffrey more, but she thought that she at least had some place in her heart for her and Tommen. It may seem to be she was wrong. Changing into her thin nightgown, Myrcella plunged onto her bed, desperately wrapping herself with furs to keep herself warm in this frozen wasteland and the grey castle the Starks called home. Shivering from the cold, despite the fire radiating heat from her fireplace within the chambers, Myrcella tried to fall asleep as soon as possible. Chapter 05. Bran Stark. Despite father's favor to try to reach out to the princess, Bran did not manage to do this that evening. Myrcella coldly offered her hand to him, not saying a word. To be honest, Bran wasn't eager to start a conversation with her either. Shortly after the betrothal became known to the public, thanks to the king, Myrcella seemed to have left the hall as she was nowhere to be seen. He felt uncomfortable when his siblings, Robb, Sansa, Arya and Rickon, along with Domeric Bolton, Jane Poole and Ned Umber looked at him when they heard that he was going to marry Myrcella. They immediately began harassing him with congratulations and questions. "Oh, that is so wonderful." Sansa, who was always a romantic person, declared. "You are going to marry a princess, Bran, I am so proud of you." Bran rolled his eyes as he sensed some jealousy from Sansa's voice. It was obvious that she was jealous of him marrying a princess while she always wanted to marry the prince. Robb gave his congratulations too, along with his pregnant wife Aelys. "Way to go, brother." Arya then added, playfully punching her brother in the shoulder. "You are now stuck, just like Sansa here. Says the one who is also betrothed and will soon marry." Bran responded cheekily, making Robb, Aelys and Domeric laugh while Arya gave them a glare, annoyed from being reminded of her betrothal with the Umber boy. Bran tensed even more when shortly after the king announced the betrothal, his father stood up to also make an announcement. "It has been decided," his father declared, "that my son, Brandon Stark and Princess Myrcella shall marry on the same day as Lord Eddard Umber and Arya Stark shall." Bran looked up and shivered as he saw the queen staring at him, as if she wanted to kill him. The boy already knew that the queen may be beautiful, but she was not a good-natured woman like his mother, Catelyn Tully Stark. He was brought back to reality when he felt somebody pulling the fabric of his clothes. Turning right, Bran looked at his little brother, 10-year-old Rickon Stark. "Does that mean you have to go away too, Bran?" he asked suddenly. Bran put his fork on the table. He knew what Rickon meant. When Sansa was betrothed to Domeric, it was decided that once she would marry the heir of Roose Bolton, this would mark the end of Domeric's fostering in Winterfell, and he would return to Dreadfort along with Sansa in order to succeed his father as the keep's new lord and head of House Bolton. Rickon really caused a scene, declaring he did not want Sansa to leave. Father and mother barely managed to calm the young boy down. History repeated itself once Arya Stark was betrothed to Ned Umber. Rickon feared that she would leave Winterfell and live in the last hearth. Now, Bran was betrothed to Myrcella, and Rickon was afraid to lose his brother too. To be honest, Bran was not sure where he and Myrcella would go once they were wed. He hoped they would stay in Winterfell. "I honestly don't know," Bran answered to the 10-year-old. "I don't want you and Arya to go," Rickon whined. Arya then joined the conversation. "I don't think that Bran would be leaving," she said. "And if yes, then it is something he has to do. But don't worry," she added, messing with 5H the young boy's auburn hair. "You can visit us whenever you like." "Really?" Rickon exclaimed from excitement. Chuckling, Arya nodded. Bran smiled at the youngest of the Stark children until he heard Sansa calling him. He looked at his auburn sister. "What is it, Sansa?" Bran asked. "What are you doing here?" she suddenly asked. Bran looked at her as if she has a third ear. "I meant, why are you sitting here, eating?" She then changed the question. "Feasting, like the others. Is it not obvious?" Bran asked in return, not understanding what she was getting at. "I see that," Sansa answered. "Why are you here, when you supposed to be dancing?" "Dancing? With your betrothed?" Sansa added. Bran groaned in frustration. Of course, he should have expected that from her. Sansa was like a true lady born. While his mother was proud of Sansa's behavior and habits, it did quite annoy others, particularly Arya and Bran. Bran knew that his second sister was forced to live up to the expectations of their mother and Septa Mordain, which he failed due to the lack of talent in sewing, nature and different looks on society. This did not concern Sansa, however, as she continued to interfere in Arya's habits, especially when Arya was betrothed. Sansa immediately used the opportunity to become like a mentor to her sister, telling her what it was expected from her, a future wife. Now, she was doing the same with him. "From what I see, Sansa, Princess Myrcella has retired for today," Bran answered cheekily, trying to outsmart his older sister. "Well then, you should still get up and dance," Sansa then told him. "I won't let you spending the whole feast sitting on that chair. Robb, do something." Bran called for his older brother, but Robb refused to help him. "Come on, Bran, have a dance," he told him. "I am staying here with my dear wife." He explained the reason of sitting at the high table, gently stroking Aelys' swollen belly. Bran turned to Domeric, but he was heading to dance with Sansa and supported his fiancée. Growling, Bran reluctantly stood up, looking at a smirking Arya, only to hear Sansa's voice again. "Arya, you and Ned are joining us too." Soon, it was Arya growling in frustration, while Bran was the one smirking at her, which the little wolf noticed. "Get that smirk off your snout," she demanded, making Bran and Domeric laugh, while Sansa rolled her eyes. Despite not wanting to dance, Bran was soon enjoying it. Under the guidance of the music, he was dancing with Beth Castle, while Arya nearby was dancing with Ned Umber. Once the time came to change partners, Bran was engaged with Arya. The two siblings enjoyed the fun as they giggled and laughed while circling around. They changed partners once again and Bran saw Arya with Tommen. Myrcella Baratheon. It was the day. The day Myrcella dreaded most since Robert had her betrothed to Lord Stark's son. The day her family would leave her here, up in the north, in the cold and frozen north. Away from warmth, away from family, and away from home. The courtyard was swarming with people, as the royal party was preparing to leave Winterfell for the journey to King's Landing. Banners of Baratheon and Lannister were flying. Most of them were returning to the capital, except for Myrcella Baratheon, who was staying with the Starks, and her uncle Tyrion Lannister, who was heading further north to Castle Black in order to see the infamous wall. The princess remembered Tyrion telling legends of the wall and the Night's Watch, with him being personally obsessed with it. No wonder, from what Myrcella heard, the wall was a wall 700 feet high and made of pure ice, and no stone. That morning, she was silent as she knew it was the day her family was leaving her in the care of the Starks. She was sitting at the table by herself, breaking her fast, and trying to be distant from her family, Uncle Jaime, Mother and Tommen, who were later joined by Uncle Tyrion. It was unknown where was the king. Either he was still asleep, surrounded by numerous unclothed women, or was already awake, but having a hangover. Both of these cases were as a result of his consumption of alcohol during the whole feast and even after it. As usual, Myrcella knew that her dwarf uncle also had a desire for wine, but even he knew the limit and when he had to stop from getting himself dead drunk. "Is Robert still abed?" Tyrion asked his siblings. A servant approached. "Bread," Tyrion told him, "and 2 of those little fish, and a mug of that good dark beer to wash them down. Oh, and some bacon. Burn it until it turns black." The man bowed and moved off. Tyrion turned back to his siblings. "He should be up now, if you are leaving today," Tyrion told them. Cersei frowned. "Are we leaving?" she echoed. "What about you?" "Gods, don't tell me you are staying here." Tyrion shrugged. "Benjen Stark is coming from the Night's Watch with his brother's bastard to collect new recruits for the wall. I have a mind to go with them and see this wall we have all heard so much of." Jaime smiled. "I hope you're not thinking of taking the black on us, sweet brother." Tyrion laughed. "What, me, celibate? The whores would go begging from dawn to Casterly Rock. No, I just want to stand on top of the wall and piss off the edge of the world." Cersei stood abruptly. "The children don't need to hear this filth. Tommen, come." She strode briskly from the morning room, with Tommen trailing behind her. Tyrion then looked up to Myrcella. "I know you will feel alone here, Selak. But I promise, I'll visit the wall and on the way south I will visit you in Winterfell. I will be quick." Myrcella forced a smile, in order to show her uncle that she was fine with the plan. She hoped that he would be quick indeed. At least she would have Septa Eglantine with her here. Now, she stood in aligned with the Stark children as the wheelhouse was being packed with the belongings of her mother and brothers and ready to go. Myrcella saw her mother finally exiting the keep with Lady Catelyn following her. Myrcella hoped that mother would approach and hug her, but was heartbroken to see Cersei displaying an angry look, ignoring her and everyone. "I can assure you, Your Grace," Lady Catelyn told the Queen. "Your daughter will be safe. I swear by the gods. Bran is a very sweet boy." Cersei Lannister forced a smile before leaving and approaching the wheelhouse. Myrcella shivered as she noticed her mother giving Robert a deadly glare. She then coldly offered her hand to a Lannister soldier, who helped her to get into the cart. Her father was nowhere near better. He didn't even look at her, as he was already sitting on horseback. Myrcella felt pity for the stallion that was forced to hold that sack of fat on top. Joffrey completely ignored her, not that she really cared. The only ones who bid farewell were her uncle Jaime and Tommen. She felt tension when her brother approached her. "All right, I guess we bid farewell, dear sister." Tommen began before Myrcella interrupted him. "Tommen, I'm so sorry for yelling at you back then." Myrcella apologized. "I was just shocked from the news and I have no excuses." "Please, I didn't mean to yell at you," Myrcella explained when suddenly, Tommen pulled the girl into a hug. "I'm not angry at you, Sela," he told her. "You have nothing to apologize for. I love you, sister." "I love you too, brother," Myrcella answered. They held in each other's embrace for some time until King Robert ruined the moment. "Oh, boy. Come along, I want to get out of this frozen land as quickly as possible," he roared at Tommen, making the 13-year-old curse to himself as the golden-haired girl heard him doing it. "Be safe," the princess warned her brother. "With me gone, who will defend you from Joffrey?" "Don't worry, I'll be careful and vigilant," Tommen assured her, smiling. On the verge of crying, Myrcella parted ways with her beloved brother who headed towards his horse, as he decided to head south on horseback, along with Sir Jaime Lannister. With the king's command, the royal party began departing Winterfell, with Tyrion and a few soldiers left within the keep. Standing with Septa Eglantine, Myrcella gripped the fabric of her dress, mentally telling herself to not to cry and be strong. She was a princess, princesses do not cry. Although she did not cry, a couple of tears still escaped her beautiful green eyes. She was now left here, in the North End as a ward of House Stark. Chapter 06. Sansa Stark. While she was proud of her little brother marrying Princess Myrcella, Sansa also felt jealousy rising in her heart. Since she was a little girl, she was told about numerous tales and songs of knights and princesses. Mostly from Septa Mordane. After that, Sansa dreamt of one day marrying a prince, and eventually becoming queen. She knew that her dream would come true. However, these dreams were shattered when her father summoned her to his solar. Mother was already there. Her parents told her that it was decided that she would marry Domeric Bolton, the heir of one of the North's vassal houses. She immediately began complaining that she wanted and had to marry the crown prince, not some ugly, savage northerner. Father scolded her, reminding Sansa that she was a northerner, but the airheaded girl did not want to listen him. She turned to Mother for support, only to be betrayed by her as Catelyn agreed to the betrothal. On that day, Sansa yelled, cried, snapped at her siblings, and accusing the innocent Arya Stark of doing this. She called her horseface, right in front of the whole family, accusing her sister of ruining her life, stealing her future away from her, and that Mother should have fed her to the hunting hounds living in the kennel. After that, both Mother and Father punished her strictly. It took a long time for her to be sullen and bitter towards her parents and Arya, barely talking with them. Soon, Domeric arrived to be fostered, and as time went on, Sansa immediately became infatuated with the heir of Dreadfort. Still, the dreams remained, despite her being already 17 years old. She immediately believed that Joffrey was what a prince was in the songs, tall, handsome and gallant. Domeric was handsome too. He was tall, athletic and slender, but Joffrey was more handsome, with a soft skin. Sansa believed in that, even if she did not touch him yet. She finally had the chance when she, her betrothed, Bran, Arya and Ned left the table for a dance. After dancing with Domeric, they changed partners and she ended up with Joffrey. Sansa immediately sensed the smell of wine from him. Beaming happily, Sansa began dancing with him when she felt his iron grip on her, his lips curling into a smile. Sansa felt his fingers pinch her skin. "I have waited for this for a long time, my dear Sansa," Joffrey sneered, suddenly making the girl uncomfortable. It sounded as if he had a possession over her. Out of courtesy, she had let the crown prince to lead. She soon regretted that, as Joffrey was holding her tight, and it hurt. His fingers began to squeeze her wrist. He was hurting her, and did not let her go when it was time to change partners. "May I, my princeling?" Domeric interfered. "Get lost, Bolton. I'm a prince and I can do what I want. I want to dance with her and I shall dance for the rest of the night," Joffrey snarled, increasing his grip on Sansa. "With respect, she is my betrothed," Domeric told him, trying to remain calm, despite the concern he had for Sansa, and the anger at Joffrey radiating from him. "Well, I'm afraid, I can easily annul your betrothal," Joffrey sneered when he broke Sansa's wrist. Sansa barely broke away from the prince. "Sansa!" Domeric almost exclaimed, pushing Joffrey aside, approaching her and grabbing her wrist, immediately inspecting it. "Idiot, you broke her wrist," he almost yelled at the prince. "She'll live," Joffrey scoffed, immediately offending Sansa. He hurt her and felt no remorse, not even apologizing to her. She looked at him again. It was as if she was seeing him for the first time. She wondered how she could ever have thought him handsome. His lips were as soft and red as the worms you found after a rain, and his eyes were vain and cruel. "You craven," Domeric growled at the prince. "You're no man to treat a lady like this. You're calling me a woman, while defending a gal." Joffrey shouted, grabbing Domeric and pulling him back. Sansa gulped as she saw Domeric giving Joffrey a deadly glare. "Touch me, or my bride, once again. You dare to threaten me, a prince. I will be king and I will have you flayed." Joffrey threatened. Only for Domeric to smirk. "You're forgetting, princeling," he spoke. "We, the Boltons, are known for flaying, Not the Baratheons, neither the Lannisters, and do you know how I will flay you? He asked before leaning forward to Joffrey's ear, whispering. Sansa did not hear what her bridegroom said, but whatever it was, frightened Joffrey, judging by his pale look. Despite trying to no thinking about anything inappropriate, Sansa caught herself thinking that Joffrey was about to urinate in fear. She then noticed Lord Tyrion Lannister and Sandor Clegane, the Hound, approaching them. Finally, we found him. Tyrion exclaimed. From what Sansa understood, the Hound was taking Joffrey back to his chambers, only to get himself distracted enough for the prince to escape. Turning to see Sansa's broken wrist, Tyrion immediately asked if she was all right. I'll take her to Maester Lewyn, Domeric assured the imp. Nodding, Tyrion and Sandor took Joffrey away, while Sansa was led to the Maester to have her wrist fixed. Sitting, Sansa looked up, to see Domeric lovingly looking at her. Sansa was grateful for Domeric, while also lamenting herself. She cursed herself for being naive, believing in the Septa's tales about gallant knights. These tales were nothing but lies. Yes, Joffrey was a prince, and was supposed to be gallant and loving. Rhaegar was a prince too, and yet, he kidnapped Sansa's aunt, Lyanna Stark, and did gods know what to her. If anyone truly loved her, aside from her family, it was Domeric Bolton. During the time they had together in Winterfell, Sansa saw him as a firm, no-nonsense, but caring person. Sansa decided that she lived in the world of songs and dreams of knights and princesses for far too long. It was time to live in the world of reality. Underscore 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 underscore. It has been a few days since Sansa thanked the gods that the royal party finally left her home. Despite the king and his family were only a couple of days in Winterfell, the Stark children already had negative impressions of the king, the queen, and the crown prince. Now, they were somewhere on their way back to King's Landing, but she didn't care where they were, or what was going on there. What mattered now was her wedding. It was the day when she would marry Domeric. Roose Bolton, Domeric's father, has arrived 2 days ago. Sansa stood in front of the mirror, full of excitement as she wore a beautiful, white winter dress, in contrast to her auburn hair. On one hand, she was sad that she would leave Winterfell tomorrow, but on the other hand, she would go and live with Domeric, who would be her husband. Her mother, Lady Catelyn, personally helped her with the dress along with Aelys and Jane Poole. She thought that Septa Mordain would join them. However, Sansa wanted to avoid her. During these few days, both Mordain and Myrcilla's Septa, Eglantine, were causing trouble. Both were protesting against the wedding process. Sansa knew that she and Domeric would be wed under the eyes of the old gods, at the weirwood tree within the Godswood. It was obvious. The two Septas began bashing, stating that Sansa was a lady, and must marry by the ways of the new gods, within a September. Sansa was surprised that her mother stood by father's side. Lady Catelyn, you are a southern lady, how can you allow this blasphemy? Septa Mordain cried. Yes, I was born in the south, her mother answered. But we're in the north now. Sansa was born here, in the north. She is a northern lady, and shall marry by the ways of the north. Now I have known you for a long time, Septa, and I am grateful for what you did, but I advise you, do not ruin my daughter's wedding, or you will face consequences. Although shocked and offended by this response, Mordain stopped protesting. You look perfect. Catelyn said softly, gently grabbing her daughter's shoulders, while observing her by the mirror's reflections. Thank you, mother. I'm so proud of you, Sansa, her mother continued. I know you wouldn't marry the prince, or someone from a major house, but I'm still happy for you. Happy that you would have a husband now. Oh gods, my little girl is a woman grown. Catelyn whispered, as she began to cry. They heard a knock and her father entered. Sansa, it is time. Are you ready? He asked. Receiving a nod, Eddard took Sansa by her hand, just as Catelyn, Jane and Aelys left them. Sansa beamed as her father led her down the aisle. Her mother joined her siblings along with Aelys. The wedding was officiated by Roose Bolton. Of course, by the traditions of the first men, the ritual was performed in the evening, the stars illuminating the dark sky. Sangza giggled to herself when she saw Rukan, rubbing his eyes and yawning, obviously wanting to go to sleep. Bran was standing beside Myrcella, obviously uncomfortable from being near his bride. Myrcella, meanwhile, tried to smile. Since her family left, the princess was feeling lonely, obviously missing her family. Sangza tried her best to support the golden-haired girl, but now she would soon be leaving for Dreadfort. "Who comes before the old gods tonight?" Lord Roose asked. Her father, who still stood along her, answered. "Sangza of House Stark, comes to be wed. A woman grown, true-born and noble. She comes to beg the blessing of the gods." "Who comes to claim her?" "Domeric of House Bolton, son of Roose Bolton, heir to Dreadfort." "Who gives her?" "Her father, Eddard of House Stark, Lord of Winterfell, Warden of the North." Eddard answered. "Lady Sangza, do you take this man?" "I take this man." Sangza answered with confidence, smiling at Domeric, who was smiling back, as he removed the Stark cloak from her, replacing it with a cloak bearing the sigil of House Bolton, her new family. They made their vows in front of the weirwood tree, followed by being declared as husband and wife, and ending the ceremony with a kiss. After that came the wedding feast. Despite being nervous about the bedding, Sangza was enjoying the feast. It was far more better without the king. Sangza thought of getting Bran and Myrcella dance together, but she was encouraged by her new husband to stay with him. Not to mention that Bran himself finally took the initiative to dance with the princess. Sangza also anxious of calming Rukan down as he knew that she would be leaving. Thankfully, he was sleepy and tired, so mother led him to bed. She saw her father interacting with Roose Bolton, each holding a mug. When it was time for the bedding, Domeric stood up and began carrying her himself, much to the shock of the guests. Sangza noticed her good father Roose smiling at his son with pride. Sangza giggled as he carried her to their bedchambers, saved specially for them. Both Sangza and Domeric began to undress each other before spending their first night as husband and wife. Bran Stark. In his 14 years, Bran had attended 2 weddings. One was the wedding of his brother Robb and Aelys Karstark, and now the wedding of Domeric and Sangza. He stood at the heart tree with Summer to his left and Myrcella to his right. It was clear that she was feeling uneasy at the wedding. The first reason was that the old gods were not her religion. He heard Septa Eglantine constantly raging on that this was not a wedding at all, and that their children would be illegitimate bastards. Septa Mordain was protesting less, but still, she wasn't happy that her best student was not marrying in the way of the 7. Another reason were the direwolves of the Stark children. While Septa Eglantine called them abominations, with Septa Mordain chastising Sangza and Arya that a lady does not feed dogs, despite the 2 ignoring the old woman, it was clear that Myrcella herself was actually scared of them. Bran assumed that Myrcella never saw a wolf before, but she knew that wolves do not reach the same size as the direwolves. The animal partners of the Stark children were massive, almost as big as a horse. She once cowered in fear when she saw Rukan riding on Shagadog, his direwolf, with Osha the wilderling strolling beside them. At least, that's what Osha told him. This led to the third reason, as his betrothed, Myrcella had to stand with him. The princess was anxious about the betrothal and her fiancé, while also being afraid of his direwolf, Summer. Still, she stood there at the weirwood tree in the Godswood, in the cold. It was evening, and the air became chillier. Aside from the Starks, the Boltons were also present, for obvious reasons. While she somehow got used to Domeric, Myrcella felt uncomfortable with that cold-blooded look of his father. She stood beside him, but tried her best not to look at him. Then came the feast. Just like Myrcella, Bran was glad that they finally returned to the keep as they sat, getting themselves warm. Despite the tasty food and the joy roaming the great hall, Bran was dismayed that Sangza was leaving. It was the same feeling he had when Jon left for the Wall to take the Black. After Lord Tyrion left for Castle Black, Myrcella was truly lonely, with no friends, and Bran understood that. Thankfully, his mother Catelyn and Sangza were there to provide her company. While being a northerner, Sangza had a good taste in dresses, especially from the south. Now, she was married and would leave for Dreadfort on the next day. Deciding to get to know her better and spend time with his betrothed, Bran approached Myrcella and asked her for a dance. Reluctantly, Myrcella nodded and Bran gently led her to the middle of the hall. The two began to dance as Bran held her waist and wrist. Circling, Myrcella admitted that Bran was quite a good dancer. He didn't even step on her feet. For the first time since arriving to Winterfell, Myrcella Baratheon smiled, which made Bran smile in return, being happy for her. She blushed when she saw Bran nervously smiling in return. After some time of dancing, the two decided that they had enough and returned to the high table. Sitting down, Bran noticed Myrcella suddenly shivering when they felt something furry against their legs. She almost gasped when she saw the direwolf, Summer poking its head out under the table, his large eyes observing her. It was as if Myrcella feared that the beast would leap at her like a predator on its prey. Getting an idea, Bran took her hand. Myrcella looked at Bran, while trying to keep an eye on the canine. "It's all right, Summer won't harm you," he assured her. "It's just you are a stranger to him since he has seen you for the first time. Here, let him know you." Before Myrcella could answer, Bran, who was holding her hand, took it and brought it straight to the direwolf's snout. Myrcella whimpered, fearing that it would bite her hand off. She felt the wolf's muzzle touching her hand. Muzzling it, Summer sniffed her hand before surprising Myrcella as he just licked it. Opening her eyes slightly, the princess saw Summer licking her hand multiple times. From Myrcella's reaction, the licking and muzzling tickled the princess. Bran smiled while the wolf gently nuzzled her hand. "It means he likes you," he told the girl. Myrcella smiled in return before Bran asked, "Do you want to try to give him some meat?" Startled by that question at first, Myrcella nodded, despite being unsure. Her mother and Septa Eglantine always said that a southern lady, especially a princess, must not feed pets. But the direwolves of the Stark children were not pets, they were their companions. Bran immediately cut a piece from his plate, placing the slice onto Myrcella's hand. Cautiously, Myrcella reached out for Summer, offering the food to him. She smiled when the direwolf gently took the meat from her hand, diving back under the table, obviously to enjoy his meal. Both Bran and Myrcella laughed at the sight, obviously finding it somewhat funny. Chapter 07. Myrcella Baratheon. Myrcella woke up the next day with a good mood. Last night, she had a great time during the wedding of Domeric Bolton and Sansa Stark. As she rose from her bed, the princess stretched out her arms, yawning, just as the handmaidens came in, obviously to help her get dressed for today. Taking off her thin nightgown, Myrcella immersed herself into the hot water of the bath, instantly feeling the warmth of the liquid. After she was washed, Myrcella rose and was given a towel to dry herself. Wearing only her towel, she allowed the handmaidens to tend to her hair when suddenly, Septa Eglantine literally burst into her chambers. "My princess," the Septa spoke. "Good morning, Septa." Myrcella greeted her politely, but it seemed that Eglantine ignored it. "Don't Septa me," the Septa, to Myrcella's shock, hissed. "I have seen what you did on that blasphemous wedding. It is not what I thought you as a princess." "I do not understand, Septa. I did not do anything inappropriate." Myrcella innocently answered, only to whimper when Eglantine pointed her finger at her face. "Don't lie." Eglantine scolded her. "A noble lady, especially a princess, does not feed dogs at her table." Myrcella finally understood what the Septa meant. She saw how Myrcella fed Bran's direwolf. She knew that it was inappropriate to feed dogs at the table. At least, for a lady. "Summer is not a dog, Septa. He's a direwolf," the girl pointed out. The Septa, however, was not appeased. "It is an unholy beast," she scolded. "When we Andals came here, this land was filled with creatures of the other and heretics. With the light of the Seven we purged Westeros and brought life to it. And those northern savages are nothing more but defilers. Your betrothed must get rid of that monster and learn to be a true lord, a follower of the true gods." "Careful now, Septa." Myrcella suddenly hissed. "You're in the north now, and right now we both are guests. By insulting our hosts, Septa, you are breaking the guest rights." The girl did not know where that strength came from, but she also felt discomfort. She really adored Septa Eglantine, who was kind to her, but this was already too much. Scoffing, the Septa literally stormed out, like an offended little girl. Having dressed into proper northern clothing, not the first that were given to her in the south during her journey to Winterfell. Myrcella went out to the great hall to break her fast. She saw that the rest of the Stark family was already awake, except for Domeric and Sansa as they were absent, though they have not left Winterfell yet. Aside from the family members, the direwolves of Robb, Arya, Bran and Rickon were also present. Catelyn was scolding Rickon to eat properly, as the Auburn was trying to stuff his meat pie into his mouth, while Shaggydog was trying to snatch some food from the table, only to be stopped by Grey Wind, Robb's direwolf. Arya was sitting near Bran, but instead of eating she was busy tending to her direwolf Nymeria, trying to clean her fur from the bits of food left. "Sit still," Arya told her direwolf as Nymeria tried to break free. Bran was sitting, peacefully eating his meal, with Summer sitting beside. Seeing Myrcella, Bran blushed. Seeing this, Lord Eddard turned around and smiled when he saw Myrcella entering. "Ah, Myrcella, good morning," he spoke in a soft tone. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, I did, thank you, Lord Stark," Myrcella answered, blushing from shyness. "Come, Bran has saved you a seat," Lord Eddard told her, causing Bran to blush furiously in embarrassment. As Myrcella sat, she immediately felt the same shyness radiating from Bran. Seeing them blush, Arya giggled, ignoring the angry glare from Bran. As they ate, Sansa and Domeric joined them, with Lady leading the way. "Good morning, everyone." Sansa greeted her family, her eyes full of life. She and Domeric had their arms intertwined as they sat at the table together. From the look and smile on the newlyweds' faces, it was clear the two had a wonderful night together. "Good morning," Sansa Eddard replied, smiling in return. It was clear that he was happy for his eldest daughter. "So, how was it?" Arya suddenly asked, catching everyone off guard. "Arya," Lady Catelyn reprimanded in shock, only for Theon to joy. "Come on, Sansa, tell me, how was he?" "Maybe I could do better," the Greyjoy boy smirked, only for his smile to fade when he saw the deadly glares of Lord Eddard, Lady Catelyn, Domeric and Robb directed straight at him. He instantly lowered his head in shame. Myrcella noticed that she didn't really like Theon, same as Bran, who found the Ironborn sometimes irritating, but at least he wasn't sadistic and cruel like Joffrey, thank the gods. Myrcella turned to Sansa, who was furiously blushing in embarrassment. Domeric wrapped his arms around his wife to comfort her. Finally, Sansa found an answer. "You'll soon find out yourself," she spoke to her sister. "But I can assure you, you will like it. It was wonderful." Arya groaned in annoyance as she was once again reminded of her betrothal to Ned Umber. Usually, both Bran and Arya would tease each other about their betrothals, but this time, Bran did not do it. Myrcella saw him eating in silence. Once they finished, Domeric and Sansa went off to pack for their journey to Dreadfort. Lady Catelyn followed them to help Sansa, with Rickon following his mother. Myrcella offered to help, but Catelyn politely refused, stating that she was a princess. Arya decided to go off practice archery. Robb and Bran followed their father to assist him, while learning the ways of ruling with Maester Lewyn. At this time, Myrcella usually went to her lessons with the Septa, but today she was in no mood for that, with no desire of seeing Eglantine. Now, she fully understood Arya. Not sure of what to do, Myrcella was thinking of visiting Winterfell's library, but she wanted fresh air, so she decided to head to the Godswood, where last night Domeric and Sansa wed. Arriving at the pool, Myrcella sat. She began inhaling, feeling the fresh air reigning these lands. As days went on, she noticed that she began to like the north more and more, while losing the desire of returning to King's Landing, which is nothing but a pig's den. Ripples were running across the surface of the water, making the weirwood shimmer and dance. There was no wind, though. Myrcella was baffled. And then Osha exploded up out of the pool with a great splash, so sudden that Myrcella almost fell. The princess gasped when she saw that the wilderling woman was emerging from the water, wearing nothing. "How can you swim in there?" she asked Osha. "Isn't it cold?" "As a babe I suckled on icicles, boy. I like the cold." Osha swam to the rocks and rose dripping. She was naked, her skin bumpy with goose prickles. Seeing the princess' face full of embarrassment and shock, she grinned. "What are you staring at, girl? Never seen a woman before?" "I have so," Myrcella admitted. She had bathed with her mother hundreds of times and she'd seen serving women with her father, the king, too. Osha looked different, though, hard and sharp instead of soft and curvy. Her legs were all sinew, her breasts flat as two empty purses. "You've got a lot of scars," Ursula noted. "Everyone hard-earned." She picked up her brown shift, shook some leaves off of it, and pulled it down over her head. Looking back at the princess, Osha noticed her troubled look. "You look troubled." That caught Ursula off guard. "Sorry," she said. "I've never seen a wilderling, not to mention talked to a one." Seeing the wilderling's look, Ursula gulped. "Did I offend you somehow?" "Oh, no, not really," Osha answered. "It's just I forgot you're new here, and I haven't heard someone calling me wilderling for a long time. My apologies." "No need," the woman said. "You did not know. If they do not call you a wilderling, then how do they call you?" Ursula then asked, baffled. "Free folk." "Free folk?" Ursula asked. "That's how we call ourselves," Osha explained. "For we do not follow your southern customs." "Southern, as if you mean the other 6 kingdoms." Ursula took a guess. "No, all 7. Osha answered. Ursula nodded, suddenly finding interest in the wilderling. "How did you end up here in Winterfell?" "I once took Bran hostage." "What?" Osha nodded. "Me and a few of the free folk, along with some former crows, that's how we call the Night's Watch, we escaped south. As we journeyed, we ended up in the Wolf's Wood, when Bran was riding along with his brother and the Ironborn. We took him hostage, but the 2 older boys saved him. They brought me to Winterfell. At first I was a prisoner, but after some time, I became a servant to the Starks and now care for little lordling Rickon. Lady Stark doesn't seem to mind you," the 14-year-old noted. "It took some time to gain her trust," Osha simply answered. "At first, she was insistent on having me beheaded for threatening her favorite son. Then we had clashes due to me being a free folk, and worshipping the true gods, not to mention she wanted me to stay away from her children as far as possible. But then, we began to find common language." As the two sat there, Ursula was fully engaged in a conversation with Osha. The wilderling, no, free folk told her much about the frozen lands beyond the wall, about giants, direwolves, and even mammoths. Ursula heard about elephants from Essos, but in her view the mammoths were far more wondrous creatures. Just as they talked, Lady Catelyn approached them with a few manuscripts in her hand. "Catelyn Stark." Cat found the princess quick as she heard her giggle within the Godswood. Catelyn smiled as she saw Ursula sitting and talking with Osha. From what she saw, the princess was making friends in the north, especially with Osha. Osha was the first to notice her presence. "Milady," she greeted. "Hello, Osha." Catelyn replied. "How's the water?" "Fine for me," Osha answered. "You should try our hot pools," the Tully woman advised her. She then turned to the princess. "Ursula, I've brought you some letters. A raven has brought them just now." Curious, the golden-haired girl kindly took the papers and began reading them. When she read the first letter, Ursula's smile faded. However, she soon found some comfort when reading the second and the third one. "Are you all right, Ursula?" Catelyn asked. "Septa Eglantine," Ursula almost hissed. "What did she do?" Cat asked, feeling concerned for the girl. She remembered catching Septa Mordain mistreating Arya at her lessons, favoring Sansa. Shocked and angered, Cat threatened to have the old Septa banished from the north. Mordain immediately fell to ground, pleading the Tully woman to give her another chance. Reluctant and out of sympathy for the old woman, Catelyn complied. She feared that the Princess Septa was doing the same. Ursula explained to her. Septa Eglantine saw Ursula feeding Bran's direwolf, and sent a report on this to the Queen last night. The Queen, Ursula's mother, began imagining things, stating that the northern savage had his savage beast rip off the princess' hand. Cersei was demanding the king to wage war against the north, only for receiving more punches from her lord husband. From what Tommen wrote to her, she threatened to write to their grandfather Tywine, but no answer has come from him. To make matters worse, the rumor of Ursula losing her hand was spread across the city, if not across the crown lands. "Ursula, please, Do not be angry at your mother. Cat tried to calm the princess down. She's just worried for you. Thank you, Lady Caitlin. Ursula genuinely thanked. But I'm afraid she really cares about controlling me. My mother is not the most pleasant woman in the 7 kingdoms. Of all of her children she cares for Joffrey, only because he is her firstborn and thus, the crown prince, the future king, and look what that led. What? Ursula, tell me, what? He's a monster. Ursula spoke. Caitlin almost gasped. She barely stood there as Ursula told her one of Joffrey's horrible antics, while Cersei covered him up, pampering him. Caitlin thought about herself. She felt horrified as she understood that she was almost becoming a horrible mother like Cersei in this way, when she was constantly at odds with Arya, unlike Sansa. Caitlin felt that Arya believed her favoring Sansa over her. When Ursula finished, Cat pulled the princess into a hug. Oh, my poor child. You're a sweet, little girl, and did not deserve this. Thank you. Ursula answered. That princeling sure is a cunt, Osha added, causing Caitlin to give the wilderling an angry glare. Well, at least, I also got a letter from Uncle Tyrion, the princess then added. Cat smiled, happy that Ursula had someone who cared for her. At least it was Lord Tyrion and Prince Tommen. Her smile then slowly faded as she remembered about Arya. She needed to think about what to tell her second daughter, for it was going to be a serious conversation. Chapter 08. Bran Stark. Adjusting his gloves, Bran Stark walked down the courtyard of the keep, heading towards the stable, with Summer following him. He had finished his lessons with Father and Robb, and both he and Arya decided to go horse riding with Domeric before he left for Dreadfort with Sansa. He then saw Ursula Baratheon leaving the Godswood, with Osha walking with her. Feeling the urge to do it, Bran called out for the princess. Princess Ursula. Bran spoke. I was going horse riding, would you like to join? I've never rode a horse before, the girl answered. Would you like to try? Bran asked. After some hesitance, Ursula nodded. Gently taking her hand, Bran led the golden-haired princess towards the stable. Arya was already inside, placing the saddle onto her horse, with Nymeria sitting nearby. Seeing Rickon, Osha went to help him with his pony. Bran, meanwhile, was busy picking a horse for Ursula, until he found one. It was a white stallion with brown spots, and it behaved well. Bran smiled as the princess was enthralled by the horse, gently stroking the animal while he was adjusting the saddle for her. After helping her to get on, Bran got on his own horse, which was black, and stopped right beside Ursula. Stay close to me, I'll show you how to lead her, Bran told her. Soon, they were joined by Domeric and Ned Umber, much to Arya's annoyance. Soon, the 6 of them rode off, passing the gateway of the keep. They began riding across the Wolf's Wood. Bran smiled as he saw Ursula being infatuated with the forest. It was a beautiful image as the trees and plants were fully covered in snow. As he watched, Bran almost felt that he was liking what he was seeing. He had admitted that Ursula was a nice girl, but now there was something more about her. Gods, she's so beautiful, he thought as he saw her sweet smile. Her golden hair was illuminating the dark stables. Bran was so hypnotized by her look, that he didn't have time to look away when she looked back at him. Feeling the tension, Ursula nervously smiled in return. They remained like this for some time until Arya called them both. Bran saw Arya riding her horse, with Nymeria following her. Rickon was also followed, by Osha and Shaggydog. It was clear that his little brother was enjoying horse riding, even if he missed the times when he was small enough to ride Shaggy. 2 minutes later, Rickon challenged Arya to a race, which she accepted, and his 2 siblings dashed off. Bran hoped that Arya would allow their younger brother to win, his pony wouldn't be able to outrun Arya's stallion. Now, it was the 2 of them left, if you don't count Summer. So Bran began. I know I haven't asked it for a long time, but what do you think of the North? Well, a lot, Ursula answered, thinking of an answer. What can I say? It's cold, obviously, I guess. King's Landing is warmer, but there's something wondrous about these places, she nodded to the Wolf's Wood. Something magical. Also, the air. The air here is so fresh, unlike in my home. Listen, Ursula. Bran mentally blamed himself for addressing the princess by her name. I don't know how to start this, but I'll try. When our betrothal was announced, I was shocked, and just like you, a bit disappointed. Bran looked at Myrcella, who just stared back at him. It's just I guess you two had different expectations of the future, right? You're right, the princess agreed. I wasn't expected for this to happen. Well, I knew that I would have to marry sooner and later, but I didn't expect to marry someone from the north, who follows a different religion and whose customs are far different than the ones in the south. I always thought I would be married off to one of the southern lords. To be honest, when I was 12, I considered marrying Sir Loras Tyrell, the Knight of Roses they call him. But he didn't really pay much attention to me during the tourneys. Not to mention he spent more time with Uncle Renly. What about you? Were you expecting to marry someone from one of the northern houses? Well, I would have married someone from House Mormont, Bran answered. Lady Mage of Bear Island has many daughters, and is the only one with the offspring. Her brother Lord Gier is now the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, while her nephew, Lord Jorah Mormont, the previous Lord of Bear Island, is cowardly hiding from justice. What did he do? Myrcella asked out of curiosity. When he caught some poachers, he was supposed to send them to Castle Black at the Wall. Instead, he sold them into slavery, Bran explained. When father discovered this, he went after Jorah to bring him to justice, only for him to escape, disgracing his own family. Anyway, Bran continued. I assume marrying a Mormont would be a possibility, but I personally have other plans. I always wanted to become a knight. Father and old Nan always told us stories about various knights, especially the ones who served the Kingsguard during the time of the Targaryen kings. Sir Arthur Dayne and Sir Barristan Selmy are my most favorite. So, when the king, your father, came to Winterfell, I really hoped that my father would take me to King's Landing and have me squire for Sir Barristan, so that I could become a knight, and maybe even join the Kingsguard. I already picked a name for myself, Sir Bran Stark the Brave. Nice name, Myrcella genuinely complimented. Bran thanked her and the two continued to ride in silence before Bran heard the girl's voice again. Listen, I know that you wanted to be a knight, and I understand why, but to be honest, I am beginning to be glad that we are now betrothed. What? Bran asked. He couldn't believe what he just heard. Yes, he was also glad that they were betrothed, but he feared that Myrcella wasn't. Well, at least I'm glad that you did not go to King's Landing, Myrcella explained. I know you heard the tales of knights being honorable and mighty warriors, but I'm afraid I have to tell you truth, it is not like that. Well, at least in these times. There may be some knights that are true knights, such as Sir Barristan, whom I respect, but sadly, people like him are a minority. Today, knights are cravens, cowards, rapists, oath-breakers, kinglesayers, kinslayers, thieves, in other words, criminal scum. You mean, your Uncle Jaime? Bran asked, recalling from what father told him about the son of Tywin Lannister. My father doesn't refer to him by name, but by his nickname. No offense. No offense taken. Yes, but not only him, Myrcella explained. Literally, all of the Kingsguard, except for Sir Barristan and Sir Aris O'Kurt, are nothing but a bunch of scum. You do know that the Knights of the Kingsguard are sworn to protect their king and the royal family with their own lives for life and are forbidden from owning land, taking a wife, or fathering children. Bran nodded. Of course he knew that, or else he wouldn't have wanted to join the Kingsguard, that's why he wasn't really interested in girls. Well, despite swearing for life, the other knights are breaking their vows all the time. Sir Meryn Trant always sided with my mother and Joffrey. One day, Joffrey was bullying me and Tommen. Despite being assigned to protect me, Meryn Trant ignored my pleas and orders to protect me and my brother, instead enjoying the sight. Not to mention he constantly stares at me with that look as if he wants to do something sick to me. Myrcella hissed his name in disgust. Sir Boros Blount is a coward, and from what I heard from Uncle Tyrion, he constantly visits brothels of the city. Not to mention he is also Joffrey's lapdog. Sir Mandon Moore is possibly the scariest one. He has eyes of a fish, and no one really knows what his intentions are. And not only the Kingsguard are like this, Myrcella continued. I once visited Casterly Rock with my siblings and mother, and grandfather held a tourney there. One of the competitors was Sir Gregor Clegane. The mountain that moves? Bran asked. he heard about the absurdly giant knight in service to House Lannister. That's him. Myrcella confirmed. The thing is, Bran, he's a monster, literally. The way he treated his opponents was unworthy of a knight. I heard he even treated the ones who could not defend themselves, women and children, far worse. I highly doubt that he is human at all. What horrified me was that grandfather allowed a person such as this to be in his service, not to mention he wanted Clegane to be knighted, while mother thought of having him join the Kingsguard, possibly. Bran stared at her in shock. So that's what knights have become today. Dishonorable oath-breakers and cravens. Bran felt horrified with the idea of becoming one like them. Of course, he could have been a squire for Sir Barristan, but the old knight could one die, and who would have him? One of those cowards who called themselves knights. Also, I'm glad that we're not in King's Landing, the princess continued. Trust me, it is not worth your attention. It is a shithole. The whole city is rotten. The streets are dirty, far more than any other city. When we were in Casterly Rock, we visited Lannisport, and it was far more cleaner than the capital. We spent our days in the Red Keep, but even there we catch the smell of urine, alcohol and shit coming from the city. There are brothels and spice dens in every street. Not to mention the city is filled with thieves, rapists and murderers, but the city watch does nothing to bring order to the streets, instead sitting in brothels and take bribes, especially their commander, Janos Slynt. What about your father, the king? Bran asked, though he already knew the answer. Shouldn't he be dealing with this? Bran, you've already seen what my father truly is, Myrcella answered. He is no king, he does not have the guts nor will to be a true one. He has no interest in running the kingdoms. Instead, he either spends days and nights in one of the brothels, or organizes feasts and tourneys, anything that will allow him to drink himself to death. I admit to you, Bran, that I am very jealous of you. Jealous? My father rarely cares for me. Seven hells, I even doubt he even regards me as his daughter, Myrcella answered. Apart from yours. It was on the day after our arrival, I already saw that Lord Stark is something my father would never be. A caring father and a wise ruler. Your father runs the North and works extremely hard, putting a huge effort, and managing to run it successfully, despite the North being the largest kingdom of all the seven. However, he also finds time to be with his family, with Lady Catelyn and you and your siblings. I would have understood if my father didn't spend much time with me and brothers, since he is the king, but he does not work at all. No, to mention you have a better family than me. Myrcella then added. My father has no interest in me, nor does he have for mother, Joffrey and Tommen, and his brothers. My mother is a cold and selfish woman. I tried to reject this for a long time, but every day I see the truth. Mother may love me, but she only cares for Joffrey, her precious golden lion, who would one day become king. She even ignored my pleas and cries when Joffrey bullied me for the first time. Same she did with Tommen. Joffrey is a monster. I never met the Mad King, but I heard some women whispering that he is behaving like him, and I cannot blame them. He is the most horrible person I've ever met, even if he's my brother. Grandfather Tywin, Myrcella continued. I cannot say much about him, as he never smiles, so I cannot say if he cares about me or his other grandchildren. He is constantly cold towards everyone, including my mother and uncles. Still, I don't want to be like him. I despise him for wiping out a house and innocents by trapping them in the caves, and for ordering the murder of the children of Prince Rhaegar. Uncle Stannis is the same. He doesn't talk to me. Always has this stern look. Maybe it is because father always argued with him and Renly. Not to mention Aunt Sliss. I do not know her well, but I hate the way she treats my cousin, her daughter Shireen. Myrcella talked about the Baratheons. Uncle Renly is a kind man, but just like the others, he rarely spends time with me. Maybe because he is also the master of laws, or maybe because he is at odds with Robert just like Uncle Stannis. The only true members of my family who really are nice are Tommen, Uncle Tyrion and Uncle Jaime, the princess then finished. Bran listened to what the golden-haired girl told him. He never thought that Princess Myrcella had such an unhappy life. When he heard this, he felt pity for Myrcella, and before he could stop himself, he suddenly wrapped his arm around Myrcella and pulled her to him, having her head lean on his right shoulder. I'm sorry that you had to live like this, Bran softly spoke to her. He never thought this would happen, but now he wanted to marry Myrcella. Not only out of love he was now experiencing for her, but also out of want to keep her safe and protected. Don't be, it is not your fault, Myrcella answered back, suddenly not resisting, but allowing Bran to hold her. Merging his nose, Bran felt the warmth and softness of her golden hair. He was more and more infatuated with her kindness, sweetness and beauty. A true princess from Sansa's favorite tales. He heard Myrcella slightly giggling as he nuzzled her hair, tickling her. They rode like this for a long time, with their horses strolling alongside each other, while Summer was lurking somewhere in the woods, hunting for prey. Silence reigned, only the crunch of snow heard as the stoves crushed it on every step. Bran was enjoying the pleasant time they are having together, and sensed that Myrcella was enjoying it too. He suddenly felt the want and urge to kiss her. It was unclear who started it. Myrcella looked up at Bran after leaning, and Bran suddenly felt that he needed to do it, and without thinking pressed his lips against it. He feared that the princess would try to push herself away from him, but he sensed Myrcella melting into the kiss, accepting it as she wrapped her right arm around his neck. Their eyes were close, and it was as if nothing in the world mattered to them right now, so they did not see nor hear when someone approached them. Only when someone threw a snowball at them made the two 14-year-olds finally return to reality. Bran quickly grabbed Myrcella as she almost fell from her horse. Turning around, Bran groaned in anger as he saw who it was. Across the forest were Arya, Nymeria, Ned Umber, Rickon, Osha and Shaggy. Rickon was roaring with laughter, barely holding himself onto the pony, while Arya gave a mock bow, immediately revealing herself to be the culprit. Arya! Bran yelled in annoyance. What, you should thank me for stopping you from taking the princess maidenhood before the wedding, or else father and the king would kill you. Yeah, to stop you from doing what mother and father do at night, Rickon said before bursting into another laughter, as Bran blushed in anger. It was a sweet and wondrous moment. Their first kiss, and to Bran's surprise, it was a good one. He never kissed anyone before, but he liked it. But his sister had to ruin everything. Shut up. Let's go back, he yelled back, and the two turned their horses back to the direction of Winterfell, with Summer coming out of the woods, while the rest followed them as they were joined by Domeric Bolton. I'm sorry that they ruined it, Bran apologized to Myrcella. Sometimes Arya can be so irritating. Now I understand some of Sansa's complaints. It's all right, Bran, Myrcella answered. But to be honest, I really liked it. In return, Bran smiled as he then allowed the princess to lean on his shoulder again while they rode back home. Myrcella Baratheon. When they returned to Winterfell, it was nearly time for supper. Myrcella could already smell the hot and tasty food coming from the kitchen. Still, she decided to not go straight inside, instead decided to spend some time outside in the courtyard, enjoying the snow and fresh air. Dancing around the courtyard, Myrcella yelped in happiness, as for the first time in her life, she felt free. Free from her mother's influence and grasp over her. Free from Joffrey's abuse and Meryn Trant's perverted looks. Free from the flirting southern lords who want her hand in marriage just because she was the princess of Westeros. Free from the strict and harsh teachings of the Seven. Free from the stink and heat of King's Landing. As she circled around, Myrcella felt slightly dizzy and allowed herself to collapse onto a pile of snow. Standing up, Myrcella soon noticed Bran Stark approaching her. He helped her to get up. Once she stood, Myrcella noted that she could watch him for eternity. He is so handsome, so gallant and kind, Myrcella thought. Mother was terribly wrong, the Northmen are not savages. Especially the free folk, at least Osha isn't. They are intelligent and civilized people. Just then, Myrcella noticed Arya leaving the kennels with Nymeria. Bran was called by his Sir Roderick Castle, and so he left. Still having the desire of fun, a mischievous grin formed on Myrcella's lips. As she never saw snow in the south, thus never had a chance of playing a snowball fight, Myrcella still decided to try make a snowball. Lowering down and picking up some snow, Myrcella made quite a fine snowball, and with Arya's back facing her, the princess threw her snowball with a large force, straight at Arya. The snowball immediately hit straight into Arya's brown hair, causing the Stark girl to turn around. Ballsy! Myrcella cheered. To her surprise, Arya wasn't angry at her at all. In fact, she was at first surprised, but then she grinned as she began creating a snowball of her own. Seeing this, Ursula quickly began creating another one. The two girls threw their snowballs at each other, with Ursula missing this time. Still, they did not stop, as they immediately began creating more. In a minute, the two began an intensive, but innocent snowball fight, throwing the balls across the courtyard, while trying to dodge the opponent's shells. The courtyard was filled with feminine laughter. However, a shriek in the middle of the fight ruined the fun. Princess Ursula. Lowering her snowball as she was about to throw it at Arya, Ursula turned right and saw Septa Eglantine glaring at her with rage. Using the opportunity, Arya Stark threw her snowball at Ursula, only for someone to call out to her too. It was Septa Mordain. What is the meaning of this? Eglantine asked imperiously. We're playing, Ursula simply answered. This is no game suitable for a princess or lady. Eglantine declared. In fact, it is not a game at all. Lady Arya here could kill you. I agree, it is not a pleasant activity at all, Mordain added. It is dangerous. Ursula heard Arya grumble something while rolling her eyes, causing the two Septas to look at her with rage. Eglantine was far more than outraged, from what Ursula could say. She never saw her Septa like this. You savage, she raged. You dare to attack the princess. A member of the royal family. The queen shall have you punished for this. With these words, Septa Eglantine suddenly approached Arya and slapped her hard in the face, causing Ursula to gasp. I'll teach you what a true lady is, and I'll teach your brother, her fiancé. She pointed at Ursula. To follow the true gods here. Seven hells, Arya hissed in return, causing Eglantine to slap her again. Mordain did not do as she stood there watching. Suddenly, Nymeria growled as she leapt at the Septa, knocking the woman down. Only then, Mordain took action. Taking out a metal stick, she approached her fellow priestess and the direwolf, and began hitting Nymeria. Get off, you unholy beast! Mordain shouted as she continued to hit the direwolf. Leave her alone, both Arya and Ursula cried. Arya attacked Mordain, and began tackling the old woman. Mordain got distracted from the direwolf, trying to hit Arya, but Ursula grabbed her arm, twisting it, forcing the old Septa to drop her weapon. Mordain managed to push Arya away before hitting Ursula hardly. Seeing this, Nymeria left Eglantine and leapt at Mordain, defending her human counterpart. Standing up, Septa Eglantine suddenly drew out a knife and ran after the direwolf. Guessing what her intentions was, Ursula leapt at the Septa, but Eglantine hit her. You were supposed to educate those animals, not become a wolf's mate, she yelled. She was about to stab Nymeria, who grabbed Mordain's arm with her teeth, when suddenly Summer appeared out of nowhere, grabbing her arm, forcing her to drop the knife. With that, Bran's direwolf left her, while he wailed from the injuries as her arm was covered in blood. The canine approached Ursula and suddenly she felt something familiar about the eyes. It wasn't the eyes of a direwolf, but of a person she already knew. Bran, she asked. As if understanding her, Summer nodded, much to her amazement. Before she could ask more, the eyes changed and soon, Bran stormed into the courtyard with Lord Stark, Robb, Theon, Roderick, Jory and a few Stark guards. Bran immediately dashed towards Ursula, pulling the princess into a hug, while his father ran towards Arya, doing the same. The two Septas were wailing, calling for help. Arya, get your wolf off the Septa, Lord Stark asked. Reluctantly, Arya called Nymeria and ordered her to leave Septa Mordain. Turning to his men, Lord Stark gave orders. Take the Septas and the girls to Maester Lewin. Have him inspect their injuries. As the guards carried the injured Septas, Bran led Ursula to Lewin, holding her hands. Ursula was touched as she saw the fear and concern on his face. It was soon after being inspected, she and Arya were brought before Lord Stark at the Great Hall. Lady Catelyn immediately ran towards her youngest daughter, pulling her into a hug. Bran gave her a reassuring smile. Ursula smiled back. Soon, the two Septas were brought before the Lord of Winterfell, and Lady Catelyn had concern on her face. Rising from his seat, Lord Stark spoke, while Robb continued to sit to the left of him. I've gathered you here to know the truth. Arya, what happened? Taking a breath, Arya spoke. Me and Ursula. That's princess to you. Eglantine shouted. Silence. Lord Stark roared, causing Myrcella to jump. He turned to Arya, telling her to continue. Me and Princess Myrcella, after we returned from horse riding, began playing. We threw snowballs at each other, but it was just a game. Then Septa Eglantine and Septa Mordain came. Eglantine called me, Bran, you and every one of us a savage. Arya spoke reluctantly. Myrcella knew that Arya did not want to tell on the Septars, but the glare on Lord Stark made the Stark girl to continue. She hit me. And the Nymeria came to my defense. Mordain began hitting Nymeria with a stick, and we fought her. Then Summer came to save Nymeria from being killed, and then you came. That is a filthy lie. Septa Eglantine yelled. That girl, she pointed at Arya, was attacking Princess Myrcella by throwing snowballs and rocks at her. When I tried to defend the princess, your savage daughter set her beast on me, then on Septa Mordain and on the princess. Liar! Arya yelled in return, as she was trying to attack Eglantine, but was held back by Jory Castle. Lord Stark turned to Myrcella. What happened, Princess Myrcella, he asked. Myrcella thought that she would try to defend Septa Eglantine, who raised her, but what she did with Mordain was unforgivable to her. She finally and simply answered. Arya speaks the truth, Septa Eglantine is lying. Turning to Bran, Myrcella saw the boy smile. She then saw Arya's surprised face, while she ignored the Septars raging. Lord Stark ordered the Septars to be brought to the September. Lady Catelyn meanwhile, stood in horror. Some time later, as the day was slowly descending into evening, Myrcella sat in her guest chambers, resting from today's incident. Septa Eglantine was nowhere to be seen, nor that did she care. It was clear that the woman was serving her mother, Queen Cersei, and her mother left her here with Myrcella in order to keep controlling her. Her thoughts on Eglantine vanished once she heard a knock and Bran Stark came in. I came to see if you're all right, he said. I'm fine, thank you. Myrcella answered. Can you please stay here, she then asked. Smiling, Bran sat beside her on her bed. The two sat in silence before Myrcella decided to ask about him controlling his direwolf. Bran, back then, during the fight, when Summer saved me. Was that you? She felt the hesitance coming from the boy before he finally answered. Yes. But how? Myrcella answered. Taking a deep breath, Bran sat there, while she waited for an answer. He finally spoke. I'm a warg, Myrcella. A what? A warg, Bran said it again. Well, for those who follow the 7-point star, they are known as skin changers. Myrcella finally understood what he meant. He was a skin changer, which meant he was capable of possessing any other living being. From what she learned, the Seven viewed this practice as heresy and dark sorcery. That changing one's skin is an unclean thing. However, no matter how scary it sounded, Myrcella did not find it dark or evil, as she now already lost all her faith in the 7-point star. From what she heard, the skin changers were the first men, the ancestors of the Starks and most of the Northmen. You can do that because you have the blood of the first men? Myrcella then asked. Not only, Bran answered. The thing is, House Stark was found by Bran the Builder, my namesake, who also built the wall and Winterfell. According to legends, in order to fight the White Walkers and the undead during the long night, he made a pact with the children of the forest and married one of them. That's how the Starks inherited their powers and abilities. Warging. Not only, Bran continued. There's also an ability called Greensight. The ability to have prophetic dreams called Green Dreams. Myrcella's eyes opened wide as she listened. The lore of the North and First Men was far more interesting and mysterious than the lore of the Andals. Can you tell me more? She asked. Blushing, Bran began telling her stories of Old Nan. As time went on, Bran told her many stories, especially about the North, the Kings of Winter, the Long Night, the Night's Watch and so on. When he finally finished, as he was tired, just as she was, Myrcella grabbed his arm before he was about to leave. Bran, can I ask you one more? Yes. I want you to teach me how to convert to the old gods and pray to them. She said it and she meant it. Chapter 9. Bran Stark. Of all of the youngest Stark children currently living in Winterfell, Bran Stark was the most eager to wake up early. He woke up at the same time as his parents did. Putting on his current clothes after washing himself, Bran whistled for Summer, who eagerly followed him to the guest chambers. The reason for him to wake up so early was the impatience Bran had. He couldn't wait to spend some quality time with his betrothed, Myrcella Baratheon. Walking down the corridors, Bran admitted to himself that he fell in love with the princess. Father was right, this was really a chance to get close, and he didn't regret it. Myrcella was beautiful, but also kind, sweet, intelligent, and also brave after she stood up for Arya back then. He found the door of Myrcella's chambers and gently knocked. "Bran, is that you?" The girl's voice was heard through the door. "Yes. Come in, I'm almost ready," he heard her. Still, trying to be careful, the boy entered the door and froze. The princess was changing into a dress. Although curtains were covering her, Bran managed to get a glimpse of Myrcella's bare back. As a gentleman, Bran turned around. Soon, Myrcella came out, fully dressed into a local dress, created specifically for the climate of North. "Good morning, Myrcella," he blushed furiously. "You look beautiful." "Good morning, Bran, and thank you," the girl smiled back. She then greeted the direwolf before playfully stroking his furs. The two then went straight to the Great Hall, holding their hands. "Good morning," he said once they entered the hall. His parents, Eddard and Catelyn, have also just entered the hall to break their fast. "Bran, you're early," Catelyn said, before addressing the princess. "Good morning, Myrcella." "Good morning to you too, Lady Catelyn." Myrcella politely nodded to her. "You can just call me Cat, darling," his mother told her, smiling. "Did you sleep well, Myrcella?" his father then asked as he and his wife sat in front of the two youngsters. "I slept wonderful, thank you, Lord Stark." The servants began serving them with food. In 30 minutes, Robb Stark came with his heavily pregnant wife. Bran's mother immediately asked Aelys about her condition. Aelys smiled, answering. Arya then came in, and while Myrcella giggled, Bran only rolled his eyes as he was already used to the state Arya was in every morning. Arya had her brown hair undone and unbrushed, while she had a sleepy look as she yawned across the hall. "Arya," Mother gasped at the sight. "How many times do I have to tell you to not to come down the hall in such state?" "Arya, listen to your mother," his father stood with his wife. Arya just ignored their mother as she sat beside Bran. As he took his mug, Bran noticed that Arya froze for a moment, as if she noticed that something was missing. Bran deduced what she was thinking about: Sansa. Arya looked at the place where Sansa usually sat. Of his two sisters, Sansa was the one who woke up early and was the first to break her fast. One of the things Bran disliked was the feud between Sansa and Arya. Sansa was more feminine, just like their mother, while Arya was tomboyish. After Sansa stopped bullying Arya after being reprimanded by her parents, while also accepting her betrothal with Domeric, the fighting stopped. However, there was still tension between the sisters. Bran supposed that the sisters didn't sort their things out. When Sansa was leaving Winterfell, she shared a tearful hug with every member of her family, but when it came to Arya, the sisters had an awkward farewell. They barely hugged. Brushing these memories off, Bran faced Myrcella and began offering her various food. Myrcella blushed as he did so. Rickon came next, wild as ever. He literally flew into the hall, riding on Shaggy. Bran, Myrcella, Arya, Robb, Aelys and Eddard laughed at his antic, while Catelyn gasped. Osha then entered, catching up with Bran's younger brother. The whole family began eating. Arya groaned as Ned Umber entered and joined her at the table. Bran literally felt sorry for the poor boy. If only Arya could give him a chance. As he ate, Bran noticed that two people were absent. One of them was Sansa, which was obvious since she left to Dreadfort. The other person was Theon Greyjoy. Of all people, he was the one to come late to break the fast, and Bran already knew why, since he learned what did the words brothel and prostitute meant. It was then, Bran also learned that Theon had a habit of visiting the brothel at Wintertown. He had a habit of spending the night over there, surrounded by undressed women. Theon would then return either from a hangover, or not, after having another session with the prostitutes, in the morning. Robb also visited the brothel with Theon. The two were close friends. However, When Rob was betrothed to Alice Carstock, Bran saw his brother becoming more responsible and stopped visiting the brothel at all. While this made their parents, especially their mother, proud, it made Theon unhappy. Bran assumed that the Ironborn felt lonely and abandoned. Speaking of him, Theon just entered the hall. Bran was right, the Greyjoy boy was drunk after another fling with the prostitutes he slept with at the brothel. "Oh, the whole wolf pack is already here," Theon hiccuped, the smell of ale coming from him at a long distance. Bran tried to brush it off. Theon turned to face Rob. While he smiled at his friend, he scowled at the sight of Alice. "Oh," he muttered. "The bitch who stole my friend away." "Theon!" Rob yelled. "What?" "I didn't do anything," the drunk young man. "You're the one who left me." "We've been together, Rob, before we went after her." Theon Rob spoke to her, barely holding his anger. "I understand you feel lonely, and I promise you that we'll spend time together. But the sake of our relationship, don't you dare insult my wife." Theon, meanwhile, turned his attention to him, Myrcella and Arya. "Horseface," he yelled. "Bran, have you fucked the golden-haired princess yet? If what, I can help you." As if provoked, Bran stood up and punched the Ironborn in the face. Theon managed to fall onto the floor, losing his cup of ale as it smashed. Bran then turned to Myrcella, immediately tending to her. At that moment, Theon stood up, raging. "You fucking runt!" Greyjoy snarled. "You'll pay the iron price now." Theon was quickly apprehended by the Stark bannermen. Holding the boy as he resisted, ranting around, the soldiers looked up to their lord. "Take him to his chambers," Lord Eddard ordered. "Once he wakes up, I'll deal with him." As the guards took Theon away, Bran spoke to the princess. "Are you all right?" "Yes, I'm fine. Thank you," Myrcella answered. As they finished their meals, the family dispersed. Bran joined Rob and father for his lessons in running a house. Catelyn went off to run the house while also helping Alice with her pregnancy. Myrcella decided to join them. Underscore 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 underscore. After finishing his lessons, Bran arrived to the kitchen. He approached one of the cooks. "Is it prepared?" he asked in worry. "No need to fear, Lord Bran," the cook answered. He placed a picnic basket on one of the tables. Bran beamed as he took it. He then left the kitchen, calling Summer, who managed to quickly snatch a piece of meat. With the direwolf following him, Bran entered the courtyard, where Rickon was doing his archery lessons. He smiled when he saw Myrcella observing the lesson. Noticing him, Myrcella ran towards Bran and joined him. The three headed towards the Godswood, where they sat at the weirwood. Placing the basket on the ground, Bran opened and took out a blanket, which he covered the ground, before placing food on it. The two teenagers sat and began their picnic. They ate meat pies and lemon cakes while Summer swam in the pool. Bran entertained the princess by using his warging abilities. He formed various formations of the ravens that were flying nearby. Myrcella found these formations impressive. "Whoa!" she managed to breath out. "That was so beautiful, Bran." "Thank you," Bran replied, smiling shyly. He continued to sit still while Myrcella took a piece of a lemon cake. Once again, he felt the urge and desire to kiss her. By pure luck and coincidence, the princess was about to face him when Bran pressed his lips against his. She was shocked just like the last time, but then also melted into the kiss. When they broke apart, Bran immediately apologized. "I'm sorry. I just..." He was cut off when Myrcella suddenly pulled him into another kiss. When they broke, Myrcella looked up at him. "You were saying," she asked. I love you." Bran finally found the courage to say it. "I admit, at first I wasn't fond of our betrothal, but as we got to know each other better, I began to see what you truly are. You're a beautiful, sweet, kind, gentle, but also clever and strong-willed girl, and I don't care if you are a princess or, no offense, a baseborn, I love you." Bran, Myrcella replied, almost tearing up. I want you to know that I wasn't happy of our betrothal too. In fact, I was very scared. Of my future. Of you. Of being away from my family. Not to mention the numerous rumors people in the South spread about the Northmen. But I was wrong. And so are the Southerners. You, your family, and your people are not savages. In fact, they are far more better than most of the so-called noble lords from the other 6 kingdoms. You have a great father, a caring and attentive man. You have a beautiful and good-hearted mother. Your older siblings are good people too. And you, Bran. Any girl would have been lucky to have you as a fiancé, and I am happy that you are mine. I'm so happy that Tommen has you as his best, if not only, friend. You've shown me what the North truly is, and I would be more than happy to have a life here with you as my husband. As if reading each other's minds, the 2 teenagers were about to kiss when suddenly a huge splash was heard. Turning around, both Bran and Myrcella saw Rukken's direwolf Shaggydoke swimming around in the pool. It was clear that it was he who made a huge splash. Rukken was nearby with Osha, laughing at his wolf's antics. Rukken! Bran almost yelled, annoyed that his younger brother ruined the moment. Rukken, however, continued laughing. Coming up with an idea, Bran smirked and walked into Shaggy, driving the direwolf away from the godswood. That caught Rukken's attention. No, Shaggy. Come back, he cried. That's not fair, Bran. I don't walk into your wolf. That'll teach you how to ruin someone's privacy. Bran boldly answered once he returned to his body. Biting his lip, Rukken ran after his direwolf, with a laughing Osha running after him. Myrcella also giggled, being joined by Bran. I love you, Bran told her once they were alone again. I love you too, came the reply, and the 2 began kissing again. They made out, forgetting about summer and the food they left on the blanket. For them, nothing mattered now, only that they were together. As they stopped to catch their breaths, both Bran and Myrcella noticed that they were not alone again. Looking up, their eyes widened in shock and embarrassment when they saw Bran's parents standing together. The 2 teenagers blushed as both Eddard and Catelyn smiled at them. Father, mother. Bran began. No need, Bran, his mother immediately cut him off, smiling. I see you're having some good time together. I know you wouldn't force yourself on her. Thanks, the boy answered, blushing. Catelyn, however, continued to embarrass him. Oh gods, she exclaimed in joy. My little boy is in love. I can assure, my lady, we only kissed. Myrcella spoke up for Bran. You have raised him well. I know, sweet child. Thank you. Catelyn nodded. Is there something you want to tell us? Bran then asked. The expressions on his parents changed as if they just remembered something. Oh yes, Eddard spoke before facing Myrcella. Princess, I have received 2 ravens, one from Castle Black, the other one from King's Landing. What is it? Myrcella immediately asked, full of emotions as Bran's father gave her the scrolls. Your uncle Tyrion is very well. He is already on his way to Winterfell, his father told her. From the south came a raven from your brother, Prince Tommen. From what I understood, he's also coming to visit you with a small entourage. Tommen is coming here? Myrcella asked in a mixture of surprise and hope. Bran watched as Myrcella's smile widened while she read the letters. She then squealed in happiness, before hugging Bran. Bran eagerly returned the hug. Some time later, the 4 left the godswood, with Bran carrying the basket and holding hands with Myrcella. Before they left, both Bran and Myrcella shared another kiss. He then watched her walking off with his mother dreamily as his father put a hand on his right shoulder. You were right, father, he told Eddard. This really was a good chance to get close to each other. Yes, I can see you 2 are close, his father replied. I love her. Bran firmly stated, causing Eddard to smile at his son. Thank you, father, for this betrothal. I am so happy for you, my son. Eddard messed with his hair. Bran then looked up to face him. Father, I don't want to rush things, but when's our wedding? He asked. Ned Stark chuckled. Cannot wait, eh? He asked, causing Bran to blush as he looked down. It will be around in a month. Will Myrcella's family come? Bran asked, though he didn't really want to see the king, the Queen and Joffrey ever again. I'm afraid only Lord Tyrion and Prince Tommen will attend the wedding, Bran his father answered. Robert instead decided to throw a lavish party and a tournament as a way of celebrating. No offense, father, but the king is nothing what you told us about him. Bran then honestly told him. It is as if the only thing he cares is to have a party, or a tourney, whatever gives him the reason to get drunk and surrounded by women. I'm afraid you're right. Eddard muttered. I even fear to think of how he gets all the gold for his entertainments. Soon, Eddard left to tend to the affairs of the north, leaving Bran alone with Summer. He leaned against the wall of the courtyard, where Myrcilla's window was seen and began staring at it dreamily. I know that look. Bran quickly phased out of his daydreaming when he saw Arya standing across the courtyard with Nymeria, smirking at him. Sansa had the same look when she stared at Domeric and the Crown Prince. Arya then continued. Someone is in love. Bran mentally groaned in annoyance. Of all people, Arya now had to troll him with his feelings. She already did that with Sansa when she finally fell in love with Domeric. Bran was not going to allow his sister to do the same to him. Yes, you're right, Bran admitted. I love Myrcilla, and she loves me. You've got a problem with that. No. Arya raised her hands, her blade, needle, was seen attached to her belt. It's just you once didn't want to marry, just like me, and now you can barely wait when you'll replace her maiden cloak with the cloak of our house. What made you change your mind, brother? At least I gave us a chance to get to know each other better. Bran told her, observing her from head to toes. Apart from someone. What are you talking about? Arya asked, baffled. About you and Ned Umber. Bran exclaimed. He didn't want to lecture his sister right now, like Sansa and Mother, but he had the feeling he had to. Since he arrived here to Winterfell, you've been treating him as if he was your enemy. He's not. He is your betrothed. I don't want him. Arya argued. I don't want to be married off to some lord. I'm not a lady. Being married to someone doesn't mean that you have to be a lady. Bran continued to lecture her. When me and Myrcilla were brought before father and the king, and were betrothed, I didn't like it. At all. One of the reasons was because I wanted to be a knight. But by marrying the princess doesn't mean I cannot be a knight. Yes, I won't be able to join the Kingsguard, but not all dreams come true. Sansa wanted to marry the prince and become a queen. Yet, she is a wife of a liege lord, no to mention with a negative reputation, but she's happy. When our parents married, they didn't even know each other, because mother was betrothed to Uncle Brandon initially before he and grandfather were killed by the Mad King. Father liked someone else, and mother possibly didn't even wanted to marry a northerner. But that didn't stop them from making a big family, and to have us. When we were betrothed, I didn't know Myrcilla very well, but this betrothal and the time we had, and still have before the wedding gave us a chance to get to know each other. I discovered Myrcilla to be a very nice person. You, on the other hand, Bran continued, immediately began antagonizing Ned. During these 2 years after he arrived to our home, all of us get to know him as a sweet and good boy. All of us, except for you. You've been ignoring him, being rude to him. As if it was his fault you were betrothed to him. It's not his fault, his father and our father decided to join House Umber and House Stark together, you know. He was shocked, just as you were. But then, he got to like you. Well, I don't like him. Arya grumbled, remaining stubborn. You cannot say that, Arya, Bran reprimanded her. You don't even know him. Maybe he would want you to teach his children how to fight, including his daughters. You didn't even give him a chance to reveal himself. I'm not saying that you have to get to know him better so that he could marry you. What I am saying is stop being cold to him and get acquainted. Who knows, maybe you won't get married, but at least, you two would be good friends. Arya froze, unsure of what to argue back. Think about it, Arya, he told her before leaving. Think about it very well. Arya Stark. Arya remained standing still as her brother Bran left her with Nymeria. Her direwolf sat beside her, licking her left hand, seeking attention. As if returning to reality, Arya looked down at Nymeria and petted her. Bran's words still filled her mind. Was she really so rude and cold towards Ned? Arya felt her throat burning as this greatly reminded her of when Sansa and her friends, Jane Pooh and Beth Castle, bullied her during the sewing lessons. Arya had to be honest to herself, today she didn't feel like herself. Usually, every time she woke up in the morning, she would see her sister's bed tidy, with Sansa's belongings nearby. Today, however, Arya saw an empty bed, which was obvious since Sansa was now married and slept with her husband. Still, Arya felt lonely, and as if something was missing. She felt the same when she came to the Great Hall. Usually it was like this: she came in, both her mother and Sansa chastised her for her look. Arya would ignore them and sit between Sansa and Bran. She was so used to this that she was at first surprised that Sansa was absent, since her sister was the first of them to arrive for breakfast. As she sat, Arya felt odd. Still feeling as if something was missing, Arya then went to the courtyard. Absent-mindedly, she arrived to where she and the other girls had their sewing lessons. Once inside, Arya hallucinated Sansa, Jane, Beth and the other girls already sitting with their needles, with Septa Mordane instructing them. But that hallucination was immediately gone like a mirage in the desert. Arya had the feeling as if something was off with that. It was as if she missed all this. Trying to improve her mood, and to avoid her betrothed, Arya grabbed Needle, the sword Jon Snow gave her before leaving for the war, and began shadow sparring. It was after that, she found Bran dreamily staring at Myrcilla's window and her brother gave her a lecture. Arya lowered her head as she felt miserable. Once, she made a vow that she would never become a bully like Sansa and her friends, only to discover that she was behaving like one. Maybe she needed to give Ned a chance. Still wary, Arya quickly found Ned Umber. Her heart suddenly broke when he almost cowered at her sight, as if fearing she was going to lash at him. Lady Arya, he quickly bowed. Hi, Ned, she answered. You can just call me Arya. Sure, I mean, Arya. Arya nodded. The two stood in awkward silence, unsure of what to say. Would you like to take a walk together? Arya finally found the will to ask. Yes, why not? Ned asked in hesitance. Still with an uncomfortable silence, the two went to the Godswood. It's beautiful, Ned suddenly broke the silence. What? The Godswood, the boy answered. It's beautiful. We have a Godswood at home, but yours is far more beautiful. And larger. Arya nodded, even though she never visited the last hearth. Is that Needle? He suddenly asked. Arya looked up. Your sword, the boy gestured at her thin blade. You call it Needle, right? Bran told me a lot about it. Yes, it is, Arya proudly claimed, taking it out of her belt and holding it in display. What else did my brother tell you about Needle? It was made by Mikkel, the keep's blacksmith, Ned answered. But it was your older brother Jon who gave it to you. Arya looked at him surprised. He knew very much. Not to mention she was surprised that the boy called Jon brother, not half-brother, or bastard. Still, she decided to test him. Well then, you know my brother is at the wall and he is. That he is not the son of Lady Catelyn, I know, he interrupted her before biting his lip. Sorry for interrupting. No, I am the one who owes you an apology. Arya was shocked by her own words. I was very cold and rude to you. You're a guest, you do not deserve this kind of treatment. I understand, Ned answered. You're not happy of us being betrothed? Yes. I can assure you, I have nothing to do with it, he told her. My grandfather Great Jon Umber proposed this to your father. I was shocked just as you were. Still, that does not give me the excuse to treat you like horseshit. Arya replied. You're afraid that by marrying me, you will not be able to use a sword? Ned suddenly asked. And that too, the girl answered as she attached Needle back to her bed. To be honest, I never thought that I would marry for two main reasons. One was that I didn't want to marry and become a lady. Two was that I thought no one would want me as a wife. Because of your views and likes? Ned asked with caution. Not only, but also I am not very attractive. Arya answered honestly. People say that I now resemble my late Aunt Lyanna, but I don't see how. Lyanna was beautiful, I'm just Arya Horseface. Suddenly, Ned Umber stopped, and Arya did so too. The girl noticed that the boy clenched his hand in anger. Ned, however, calmed down. Remember this, Arya Stark. He turned to face her. Whoever calls you this is nothing more than a jealous fool. You are a very beautiful girl, and a strong and healthy one. The way you move around with your blade is the most impressive technique I've ever seen. Thank you. Arya muttered. She blushed furiously. So it's true, Ned really did like her. I know this will not make you change your mind on our betrothal, Ned then added. But if we marry, I swear by the gods, old and new, that I will never force you to become what you do not want. In fact, if we had children, I would like you to teach them how to fight. Especially our daughters. Arya froze. Ned, are you? The Umber boy nodded. Touched by such revelation, Arya hugged him. Arya mentally reprimanded herself for her blindness. Bran was right, Ned Umber was a very nice person. They continued walking around the Godswood, agreeing to spar tomorrow. As they parted at the entrance to the courtyard, Arya found her mother waiting for her. Arya immediately tensed. Mother, she asked with caution. Arya Caitlin greeted her. Arya was confused. It was as if she heard sadness in her mother's voice. Can you please come with me? Not really wanting to have another lecture with her mother, Arya hesitantly followed. Soon, the two women and the direwolf entered Kat's private chambers. What is it, mother? The girl asked, frustration in her voice. Instead of answering, Kat asked her daughter to sit on the bed. Baffled, Arya did so. Once she sat, Caitlin joined her. The two sat in an uncomfortable silence until Arya's mother spoke. Is that your sword? She suddenly asked. Yes, that's Needle, Arya firmly answered. She was very tired from her mother's constant lectures about ladies not having swords. Arya was then shocked from what Kat said next. It suits you well. Arya eyed her mother suspiciously. Mother, what's going on? Arya Caitlin took a deep breath. I have a question for you, and I want you to answer me honestly. Are you miserable? What? Arya asked, hoping that she misheard. Please, Arya, tell me. Caitlin begged. I really need to know. I don't know what you're talking about, the girl honestly told her. Taking shallow breaths, Caitlin once again spoke. For years she began explaining. I've been blind when it came to you. I thought I was raising you both girls well. I've brought Septa Mordain for you to learn to sew, to dance, sing and run a house in the absence of your husband. At first I thought that you were the one who was causing trouble, and constantly reprimanded you. Until I learned about the bullying, and Mordain ignoring it. Mother, what's going on? You're scaring me. Arya interrupted her. We don't connect over many things, and we don't spend much time, apart from Sansa, with whom I spend much longer. Caitlin continued. No wonder you may believe that I prefer Sansa to you. Arya shivered once she heard that. It was as if her mother read her thoughts. Was she really that obvious? I'm sorry. Arya muttered. For being a bother to you. Oh, Arya, you're not. Caitlin gasped. I know you may find it hard to believe it, but you are very dear to me. You may be wild, and have the spirit of a wolf in you, but you are my daughter, and I love you. I love you all equally, Rob, Sansa, you, Bran and Rickon. I'm the one who's at fault. I tried to raise you to become what you are not, and made your life miserable. Mother, no. Arya wanted to calm her mother down. You were just trying. She was cut off by Caitlin, who pulled her into a hug. Arya felt awkward until something inside her broke. She returned the hug, sobbing as she was held by her mother. She couldn't remember when was the last time she and her mother hugged. She really missed them. Once they parted, Caitlin spoke again. Arya, about the betrothal, if you want to, I can ask father to cancel it. No, Arya stopped her. Don't do it. For now. I want to give Ned a chance. I understand. Caitlin smiled. If what, you can come to me. Thank you, Mother, Arya genuinely answered. Her smile faded as it suddenly hit her what was off in the morning. What is it, darling? The woman asked in concern. It's Sansa, the girl answered. We didn't have a good farewell when she left for Dreadfort, and I miss her. I miss my sister. It's all right, little wolf. Caitlin gently called Arya by her nickname. I can assure you, Sansa loves you too and dearly misses you. How about we write a raven to her? What do you say? Arya smiled as she hugged her mother once again. Chapter 10. Myrcella Baratheon. It was another cold, but beautiful day in Winterfell. During her time here, the princess already got used to the cold of the north, and not only that. When she and her family came here, Myrcella was wearing the southern dresses, sewed for warmer seasons only, while having furs put on top of it. Now, Myrcella was wearing a bluish-grey northern dress, just what a northern lady would wear, while also always having her hair down, apart from her mother, who preferred the southern hairstyle. Myrcella hummed to herself. It was a northern song she heard recently. In fact, she was already infatuated everything associated with the north, the home of her betrothed, her beloved Bran. Speaking of him, Myrcella knew that he wasn't in Winterfell. He and Rickon have joined their father to execute another captured deserter from the war. So, right now, Myrcella was in the company of women, particularly Osha, Old Nan and the heavily pregnant Aelys Karstark. Have you and your lord husband thought of what name give to the child, milady? The old woman asked Robb Stark's wife. To be honest, not really, she answered, rubbing her swollen belly. But I thought that Robb would like to name the child Eddard, if it is a boy. A good name for a northerner. Myrcella supported Aelys, who smiled back. However, her smile suddenly faded as she saw something behind the princess. Myrcella looked around and saw Theon Greyjoy standing at the doorway. Theon. Aelys simply greeted the Ironborn, though it was clear to Myrcella that she didn't welcome him. Good afternoon, ladies, he answered, rather politely, much to the shock of everyone. Osha, Myrcella and Aelys shared looks. How can we help you, Lord Theon? Myrcella asked, trying to use her manners. Lady Aelys, Theon addressed the wife of his childhood friend, his shyness and politeness disturbing the girls. I would like to apologize for my recent behavior and my insults addressed to you. Please understand, me and Robb have been friends for a long time. In fact, more like brothers, and with you married to him, he began spending less time with me. You felt lonely? Aelys immediately deduced. Yes, the Ironborn genuinely answered. However, that does not excuse my behavior and attitude. I give you my sincere apologies. Aelys sighed. I understand, Theon. Robb also misses the times you both shared, and he still sees you as a brother. Theon nodded, and in order to give him comfort, Aelys smiled, but not for long. Suddenly, she gasped and began breathing rapidly while grabbing for her belly. Lady Aelys. Old Nan addressed. The baby. The baby's coming, she cried. Everything became a blur for Myrcella as she ended up in Lady Aelys' chambers, with the Karstark woman lying on the bed, surrounded by maids, Lady Catelyn, Osha, Old Nan, Myrcella herself, Arya and Maester Lewyn. Aelys was filling the chambers, and maybe even the whole keep, with her cries and screams. Myrcella never felt such panic before. In fact, she never attended a childbirth before. When her mother was giving birth to Tommen, she herself was only 1 year old. Aelys was crying and screaming in pain, while Maester Lewyn and Lady Catelyn were in charge. That's it, Aelys. You're doing good. Lady Stark told the Karstark woman. You're nearly there. Lady Stark is right. Osha added. Myrcella herself held Aelys' hand to comfort her. Maester Lewyn inspected the womanhood. I see the head, the old Maester declared. Push, Lady Aelys. Aelys cried even louder, while Lewyn and Catelyn continued to encourage her to use her strength to push. Myrcella felt that her ears would pop now, while fearing for the safety of Aelys and her child. Push. Catelyn continued. That's it. Push. 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 In a minute, the cries of Aelys were replaced with cries of an infant. Aelys gasped for breath as she heard the cry of her baby. Congratulations, it is a boy. Lewyn declared. Healthy. Oh, gods. Aelys gasped. Wrapping the baby into a cloth, Maester Lewyn gave him to Aelys. Myrcella, sitting nearby, took a look. He had the brown hair of his mother. Exhausted and wan, she smiled at her son. At that time, Rob literally flew through the doorway, followed by his father and brothers. "Alice," he exclaimed, running to the bed. He froze when he saw the boy. "It's your son," Rob. Alice breathed. "His name is Eddard." Rob smiled, tears forming in his eyes. Suddenly, Alice cried in pain once again and Lewin approached her. "She's having another one," he declared, shocking everyone. "She's having twins." "Twins," everyone cried in shock. Everything happened once again. The screams, the cries and the eventual birth. On this day, Alice gave birth to 2 boys, twin brothers. While Rob held little Eddard, Alice held their second son. Apart from his brother, the second boy had auburn hair, inherited from his father. "What shall we name our second child?" Alice then asked Rob. "I think Theon Stark sounds good to me," he answered, turning around and seeing a surprised Theon. He was even more shocked when Rob called him to look at the 2 boys and even hold one of them. Ursula, meanwhile, stood with Bran, crying with joy at the whole scene. It was an event she would never forget. Underscore 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 underscore. Ursula smiled, and almost cried when she saw younger brother ride into the courtyard of Winterfell. Compared to the royal visit, Tommen only arrived with Sir Aris O'Kurt of the Kingsguard and a few Baratheon bannermen. Completely forgetting about manners, the princess ran towards her brother as he was getting off his horse. "Tommen, you came," she cried in happiness and immediately embraced him. She still felt that as if only yesterday Tommen was a plump little boy who played with cats. Now in front of her stood a healthy, thin, but tall and handsome boy of age 13, who could handle a sword. He was already at least 1 centimeter taller than his older sister. "I'm more than happy to see you too," Sela the prince replied genuinely, hugging her back. The Stark family watched, smiling at the sight. Sir Aris, and the bannermen, meanwhile, also descended from their horses. Princess the Knight bowed before her. Nodding in return, Ursula joined her brother as he went to greet the Starks. As per custom, Lord Stark and his family bowed before the prince. "Welcome to Winterfell, your highness." Eddard spoke to the young prince, who thanked him in return. Tommen then approached Bran and smiled wider. Without saying a word, the 2 friends hugged each other tight, making Ursula happy that 2 future brothers-in-law were in good terms. She then noticed that Sir Aris joined them. "Welcome to Winterfell, Sir Aris." Eddard welcomed him too. "Thank you." The knight spoke in a tone that both royal children and the Starks noticed. It was a mixture of caution and hostility. There was some tension due to this, until Ursula grabbed Tommen's hand. "Come with me to the Godswood," she said. "I missed you so much, brother." As the 2 golden-haired siblings ran off, while Rob led the bannermen to their places to stay, both Ursula and Tommen did not notice the deadly look Aris gave to Bran before joining them. At the Godswood, they collapsed at the weirwood tree, with O'Kurt standing nearby, looking around the Godswood. "Tell me, how's everything in King's Landing?" Ursula begged her brother. "Not much good stuff, to be honest," the prince answered, his smile slightly fading. "Father continues to drink and whore all day long, every day and night. I fear that it is the only thing he is capable of doing. Mother is angry more than usual, considering what is going on in the keep." "And what is going on?" "Since Lord Stark refused to become Hand, Father made Uncle Renly to take the position." Tommen explained. That made Mother enraged. "I heard her screaming and yelling to Uncle Jaime that she would rather have him or grandfather as Hand. Though I also noticed that Uncle Stannis wasn't happy either." Ursula nodded, understanding to whom Cersei was referring to. She knew that her grandfather, Tywin Lannister, served the Mad King as Hand during Aerys' reign. As for Uncle Stannis Baratheon, Ursula already knew that there was bad blood between the king and his 2 brothers. Tommen continued. This led to another reason for Mother to outburst. Since Joffrey couldn't marry Sansa, thank the gods, Uncle Renly, through his friend, Sir Loras, found a new bride for Joffrey, Margaery Tyrell. I heard of her. Ursula unintentionally interrupted Tommen, but her brother didn't mind. They say that she is very beautiful. The Rose of Highgarden they call her. Yes. A rose she is indeed. Tommen agreed, speaking dreamily, which Myrcella immediately noticed. You're in love with her, she asked, only for the prince to nod dreamily, while also blushing. She is very beautiful, Sela, and kind, he told her. I cannot believe that she is to the wife of our brother. I agree, being wed to Joffrey will bring her to misfortune, misery and pain. Myrcella replied. And I think she loves me too. Tommen then added, blushing. I once gave her a rose, and she told me it touched her before she kissed me on the cheek. I don't know this Margaery Tyrell very well, but I know that sooner or later, you will find your love. Myrcella assured him, with Tommen thanking her. How are you doing here in Winterfell, he then asked. I'm doing wonderful. Myrcella exclaimed. Oh, Tommen, Winterfell is wonderful. Far better than King's Landing. It is so clean in Wintertown. The people there are kind, clean and modest. Not like the people in King's Landing, filling the streets with the smell of urine and alcohol. The Starks are generous and kind people. Me and Bran have not married yet, but they already treat me like I am part of their family. Lord Stark is an honest and generous man. I sometimes wish that he was my father, she said that with some sadness. Yes, I agree with you. How come he and my father, a responsible and honorable man on one side and a fat, womanizing drunkard on the other, became friends? Tommen rhetorically asked. Lady Stark is a kind woman. Myrcella then continued. I have a feeling she already sees me as a daughter. Sansa is so sweet and gentle. Arya is a true northern lady, brave, gallant and dashing. Rickon is wild, but funny, she giggled, before heaving a dreamy look. And Bran. Oh Tommen, Bran is so sweet, kind, humble, but also handsome. Like a prince from the tales and songs. I love him. I told you he is not a terrible person, the prince told her playfully, smiling. Myrcella giggled in response. Yes you did, and you were right, the girl answered. Oh, Tommen, if only you were the older of the three of us, not Joffrey. You would make a better king, far better than Joffrey, even if he hasn't inherited the crown yet. Maybe, Tommen replied. It's just I don't anything about ruling. Well, I assume Joffrey knows nothing at all either, but at least he had someone to teach him about becoming a king. He was groomed for taking the crown, the throne and the state. But no one taught me. Let alone running a house. Myrcella sighed. She knew very well that mother always favored Joffrey, her golden lion cub, while being ignorant of her other two children. She never met a Targaryen, but the princess assumed that whenever Targaryen king would usually have all of his sons study the same subjects, for the second son may have a small possibility of becoming king instead of the firstborn for various reasons. Tommen could become the heir to the throne if something happened to Joffrey one day. However, both the king and queen ignored his studies. Myrcella understood why the king would. He was an ignorant fool and he could not rule even one of the kingdoms, but mother, why did she ignore them, while pampering Joffrey? Her thoughts were disrupted when suddenly Summer leapt out of nowhere and knocked her down to the ground. Myrcella squealed and laughed as the direwolf began licking her face, tickling the princess. Suddenly, she heard someone unsheathing their sword. No, she heard Bran's voice. Pushing Summer aside and looking up, Myrcella gasped in horror when she saw Sir Aris Oakert holding his sword, obviously desiring to kill the wolf. Bran jumped on him from behind, grabbing him while trying to keep the knight away from Summer. Sir Aris then knocked the boy off himself. Bran fell on the ground before finding himself at the knight's mercy, with the knight directing his sword at him. However, it was at that moment Summer leapt at Oakert with his fangs. Bran got up and Myrcella approached him while Aris was resisting the wolf's attacks. Summer, come back. Bran commanded. Summer obediently released his grip on Aris and ran back to Bran. Freed, Aris grabbed for his sword and was about to launch himself at Bran when Tommen stood in his way. Sir Aris, halt. Back away, the knight muttered. Stop this immediately, Sir Aris. Tommen demanded once again. I'm a prince and I command you. Breathing rapidly, Sir Aris glared at Bran, but did not move. Explain yourself. Tommen ordered as he stood tall and firm before the taller and stronger knight in armor. This boy ordered his savage beast to attack the princess, Prince Tommen, Aris answered. he must answer. Summer is not a savage beast. Myrcella yelled in anger. He was just playing with me, and this boy, as you referred, is Lord Bran. Still, he must. Did the Queen send you to hurt Bran? Tommen asked, catching the knight off guard. Prince Tommen. Tommen, however, cut him off. Sir Aris, as a knight of the Kingsguard, you must tell the truth when someone asks you a question. Especially from the royal family. He approached the knight closer. Did my mother send you to hurt my friend and my sister's betrothed? Sir Aris did not answer, but from Tommen's look it was clear that he already knew the answer. The knight finally spoke. Her Grace, he began, was very disappointed when Septa Eglantine was sent back to King's Landing. The Septa told us that the princess was seduced to commit unholy acts, and you may not have heard this, my prince, but rumors have been spreading across the streets such as the princess being mated by a real wolf. Myrcella nearly burst into anger. She knew that people in King's Landing were stupid, but apparently so stupid enough to spread such rumors. While I thank you for the concern you have for me, Sir Aris, she finally spoke. But you have almost ruined the guest rights, and I will not allow you nor anyone hurt my betrothed nor ruin my future wedding. You are dismissed. Before Sir Aris could object, the princess looked at Bran. Are you all right? Did he hurt you hard? No, Sela, Bran answered. I'm all right. Myrcella, however, continued to inspect her fiancé for injuries, while also glaring at the knight, who looked back with guilt and shame. Aris Oakurt. Sir Aris Oakurt felt shame and guilt over his latest attitude. He was literally acting foolish, just like the Queen. God's help she didn't hear that. Though, compared to his brothers in the Kingsguard, except for Sir Barristan at least, Sir Aris knew that something was wrong with the Queen. When Prince Tommen decided to visit his sister in Winterfell, Queen Cersei raged across the Red Keep, her screams and shrieks possibly filling the whole King's Landing. She shrieked, demanding the guards to stop her little cub from going into that frozen wasteland of savages. However, she then suddenly changed her mind, and the knight heard that some of the maids saw her having a malevolent grin on her face. As Prince Tommen was preparing for his journey to the north, Queen Cersei summoned Aris, ordering him to escort the prince and protect him at all costs. This didn't surprise Oakurt, for the knight frequently protected the lives of Prince Tommen and Princess Myrcella before she was betrothed to the second son of Lord Stark and left in Winterfell. However, shortly after being assigned to join the young prince, the next conversation happened. Also, Sir Aris, there is another task I have for you. Cersei spoke. What is thy bidding, your grace? The knight asked. My daughter, Myrcella, is betrothed to one of those savages, the Queen continued. I fear for her, Sir Aris. When you arrive to Winterfell, I want you to keep a very close eye on both of my lion cubs. I fear that young Wilderling and the other Northerners already raped her. My husband does not see this, but the Starks are not our friends. When you arrive, I want to make sure that that second son of Stark knew his place. He does not deserve my daughter, let alone a princess. If something happens, I want you to kill him and the whole family, if necessary. Sir Aris shrugged from what the Queen ordered, but she did not notice. He had mixed feelings about this. On one hand, as he frequently protected the younger royal children, he developed a liking to young Tommen and Myrcella, and he would do anything to ensure their safety. However, slaughtering the whole family of a Lord Paramount was insanity. He knew very well what happened to Lord Stark's father and brother, Lords Rickard and Brandon Stark, and what Prince Rhaegar did to his sister, Lady Lyanna. Slaughtering the whole family could plunge all of the Seven Kingdoms into another civil war. Not to mention she has ordered him to slaughter innocent children, something he, as a knight, could not do. Still, he had to ensure that the Starks did not hurt the two children. However, he also wondered why didn't the Queen entrusted this task to her brother, the Kingslayer. Yes, her other brother, the Imp, would be arriving to Winterfell from Castle Black, but just like the rest of the Kingsguard, the small council and the royal court, Aris knew the Queen's hatred of Lord Tyrion very well, and she definitely would not entrust her children to him. Once he arrived, he immediately became wary of Bran Stark and his closeness with the princess. However, he then saw how Bran treated the princess, and finally saw the truth. Young Bran Stark behaved like a true knight, even if he wasn't. The Queen was terribly wrong, both Bran and Myrcella deserved each other. The princess was happy with him, and the night would ensure that they would be together. So when he reached the Maester's tower to send a raven to King's Landing, he wrote 2 letters, one to the Queen, and another one to his fellow knight and the Queen's brother, Sir Jaime Lannister. Considering the Queen's sanity, which already began troubling Orys, he decided to also tell Jaime that his niece was happy with Bran and that she would have a happy married life. Once he wrote these letters, Sir Orys then felt as if something was going to happen in the royal court. Something to the king. Grabbing an extra paper and the feather pen, the knight began writing to Sir Barristan Selmy, asking him to ensure King Robert's safety, keeping an eye on things, especially on the Queen and the King's squire, Lancel Lannister, whom Orys already disliked. Leaving the tower, Sir Orys found Bran Stark in the courtyard. The boy was stroking the fur of his direwolf. The knight decided to approach them. Seeing him, Bran froze, while the direwolf growled at him. "Sir Orys?" Bran asked. Lord Brandon the knight spoke. "I bring my apologies for what I have done back then at the Godswood." What?" the boy stammered. "I deeply regret my actions, they are not worthy of a knight." Orys continued. "I understand if you do not accept my apology." No. Bran replied. "It's okay, sir. You were only protecting the princess." "Yes." Oakurt said, before remembering something. "Lord Brandon, Prince Tommen once told me that you desire to become a knight." "Something I dreamt since childhood," Bran admitted. "And from what the prince told me, you are trained better than him." Sir Orys then admitted. This quite amused me, for the prince, who, I shall be honest, is superior in combat than his brother, was trained by me and my brothers in the Kingsguard. I would like to see you and Prince Tommen to spar. Who knows, someday you will be a knight. Chapter 11. Myrcella Baratheon. Myrcella Baratheon took deep breaths, while Arya Stark shifted. Both girls stood in front of the mirror, wearing white as snow, northern dresses that they were to wear at their weddings. While Myrcella, who has been wearing dresses for a long time, was rather excited about her wedding with Bran, Arya, who was not used to wear dresses often, felt rather uncomfortable. While Bran and Myrcella already knew that they loved each other, Arya and Ned Umber at first became close friends, but in the end, Ned managed to confess his feelings for Arya, and she found herself falling for the sweet boy too. Due to Arya marrying Ned, his family, House Umber, has arrived to Winterfell from Last Hearth. Ned's father, Small Jon Umber, and his wife came. However, not only House Umber came. The marriage of Lord Stark's second son and Princess of the Seven Kingdoms was a historical event, and so, many houses of the North came to attend the wedding. Aelys' grandfather, Lord Rickard, and her parents, Harold and Bethany, of House Karstark came to see her and Robb's children. Lord Rickard was so proud that 2 of his great-grandsons would inherit both Winterfell and Carhold. Alongside them came Lady Mage of House Mormont, leaving her oldest daughter Daisy Mormont running Bear Island. Arya immediately became friends with Lyanna Mormont due to their common interest in warfare. However, Lyanna was disappointed that Arya agreed to marry. Myrcella, meanwhile, managed to make friends with Moira Reed, the daughter of Lord Howland Reed, Lord Stark's friend. Then there were House Marndale, Reed, and of course, Bolton. Speaking of Bolton, the door behind them, and Sansa came in. "Sansa?" Arya asked, and before the older sister could answer, she ran towards Sansa and wrapped her arms around her. Shocked at first, Sansa returned the hug. "I missed you," Arya whispered. "I missed you too, little sister," Sansa cooed. "Now, if you please, don't press hard on the belly. I fear for the little life inside." "Right, sorry," Arya answered, smiling as she got off Sansa and looked at the flat stomach of her sister. It was about a week ago the Starks received wonderful news that Sansa has just got a week pregnant with Domeric's child. "It's okay," Sansa waved her hand. "I'm so happy for you both. You both looked stunningly beautiful." "Thank you." As the 2 girls simultaneously answered, Lady Catelyn came in. The Auburn woman had an exhausted look, as she had to inspect that everything was prepared, the wedding feast, the guest chambers and barracks. "You look perfect," she told the 2 girls, and they thanked simultaneously again. "You 2 also have visitors." "Visitors?" Myrcella asked curiously. She wondered how could it be. Tommen was already in Winterfell, and it was decided that he would lead her down the aisle at the wedding. It was at that moment, her dear Uncle Tyrion and a tall man with the looks of a Stark, entered. "Jon!" Arya exclaimed in surprise and joy. Myrcilla's eyes widened. So this was Jon Snow, the illegitimate son of Lord Stark, and now a ranger in the Night's Watch. "Hey, little wolf." Jon chuckled as he hugged Arya, while messing with her hair. Lady Catelyn took a deep breath. "All right, I'll you for a while, but hurry up, there's a snowstorm approaching Winterfell and we must get you married as quick as possible," she told everyone before leaving, tending to the other guests. Tyrion approached his niece. "How are you doing, Myrcilla?" he asked her. "Oh, I'm doing wonderful, uncle." "I see that," he chuckled. "Look at you, so beautiful. A true bride. A true princess. Your future husband is the most fortunate man in all of Westeros." Myrcilla furiously blushed at his words, kneeling down to hug him. Arya, meanwhile, was busy chatting with Jon. Jon revealed that he would be leading Arya down the aisle. Soon, her brother, Prince Tommen came in, interrupting everyone. "Sorry to interrupt," he said. "But everything's ready. We must go." "Tommen is right," Tyrion agreed, and both he and Sansa left. Arya smiled as Sansa wished her good luck before leaving. Then both Arya and Jon wrapped their arms around each other, with Jon leading her. Tommen approached the princess. "Are you ready, Sela?" he asked. "More than ready," she genuinely answered. "I can't wait." "Come on then," he told her, offering his arm. The two golden-haired siblings left the chamber, walking towards the Godswood as night reigned. Myrcilla was walking towards the future she would share with Bran, her beloved. The only members of her family who came were her brother and uncle. Myrcilla knew that her father, instead of attending the wedding, decided to throw a tourney and waste more money from the royal treasury. Her mother would never attend the wedding, filled with hatred that she was losing her grasp on her. Though, Myrcilla did not care. The princess did not care if her mother right now was being hysterical, breaking everything around in her chambers, starting from the glass of Dornish wine, something Cersei began to do very commonly. She didn't care if her grandfather, receiving these news, raged, claiming that the king has humiliated his family's legacy by marrying off his granddaughter to a second son, rather than the firstborn, who would become the Warden of the North. She didn't even care for what the people in King's Landing and the South thought about her. To her mother and the people of King's Landing, she was Myrcilla Baratheon, bride of a northern savage, a wolf's plaything, slave, a defiler of the Seven. But to herself, Myrcilla Baratheon was the most happy girl today, along with Arya. She was a future wife of the most wonderful boy she ever met, and sometime later, a future mother. With a loving husband, and wonderful children. Myrcilla stood, watching as Arya was marrying Ned Umber. Everyone was so happy for her, with Sansa and Lady Stark hugging the little wolf tight. Then, it came Myrcilla's turn. The princess walked ahead with Tommen. Bran Stark stood at the great tree, wearing a fur cloak with the sigil of House Stark. His direwolf Summer sat beside him. Snow was literally floating around in air, falling onto the ground. To Bran's side stood his mother Lady Catelyn, Rickon with Shaggydoag, Robb with Grey Wind and Aelys, holding their sons Eddard and Theon Greyjoy, Aelys Karstark's family, the Mormonts, the Marndaelis, Maester Lewyn, Osha, Roderick and Jory Castle, along with young Beth Castle. To the opposite stood Arya and Ned Umber, with Nymeria. Then there stood Sansa and Domeric with Lady Sansa's direwolf, Jane Poole, Benjen Stark and Jon Snow with his own direwolf, Ghost, whose fur was white as snow. Right beside the direwolf stood Tyrion Lannister, who smiled at the princess, while also curiously staring at the direwolf. Along with them stood Hodder, Roose Bolton, the Umbers and the Reeds. Lord Eddard Stark himself was standing tall and proud at the heart tree. It was clear that he was going to officiate the wedding. Before that, Myrcilla saw him putting a hand on one of Bran's shoulders and telling him something while smiling. "Good luck," Sela, her brother, whispered to her before leaving her to face Bran. Tommen then joined their uncle, while Myrcilla stood to face Bran, who gave her loving smile. His father, meanwhile, cleared his throat. It was beginning. "Who comes before the old gods tonight?" Eddard Stark asked. Tommen, standing firm and proud, like a prince, answered. Myrcilla of House Baratheon, Princess of the Seven Kingdoms, comes here to be wed. A woman grown, true-born and noble. She comes to beg the blessing of the gods. Who comes to claim her? It was now Bran's turn to answer. Brandon of House Stark, son of Eddard of House Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North. Who gives her? Her brother, Tommen of House Baratheon, Prince of the Seven Kingdoms. Princess Myrcilla, do you take this man? Lord Eddard asked her. I take this man. Myrcilla answered with happiness. The two smiled at each other as Bran Stark removed the Baratheon cloak from Myrcilla Baratheon, and putting on the princess's shoulders the grey cloak bearing the sigil of House Stark. With this kiss, I pledge my love to you and take you for my lord and husband. Myrcilla told him. With this kiss, I pledge my love to you and take you for my lady and wife. Bran replied. Holding her in his arms, Bran kissed Myrcilla into her lips, soft as ever. Eddard Stark then proudly declared. Here in the sight of old gods and men, I proclaim my son, Brandon of House Stark and Princess Myrcilla of House Baratheon to be husband and wife, one flesh, one heart, one soul, now and forever. Both Bran and Myrcilla smiled and giggled as their eyes, blue and emerald respectively, were filled with happiness. The rest of the attendants applauded to them. Some even yelled congratulations to them. Even Lyanna Mormont genuinely wished them good luck, despite the younger girl's views on marriage. Catelyn Stark stood applauding, while also trying to wipe off the tears on her face, happy for her second son. Robb and Aelys did not applaud, since they were holding their two sons, but they smiled at the newlyweds. Domeric, smiling, nodded to Bran, while Sansa showed her brother a thumbs up, just like Arya did. Tommen stood proud for her sister, while also trying not to cry, for he was so touched by the sight of his sister marrying the person she loved. The two teenagers couldn't believe it. The wedding ceremony